Good evening. This is the Carver Finance Committee, joint with the Carver Capital Outlay Committee for February 13th. It's 6:40. If we could all please rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That called the Finance Committee meeting to order. Beth, would you call Capital?
Sure. I'd like to call the Capital Outlay Committee to order, and the time is now 6:39 p.m.
Right. Thank you, Area 58, for recording tonight's meeting. We have a spot for public comment. Any? Seeing none. Town Administrator and Finance Director update. I think what we'll do is go right into the budgets, and we'll save the update for when we get the police department up. I think that would work a little better for us. So, COA's first on the list, so come on down.
Sit right here.
How are you, Connie?
Good, thank you.
I know this is kind of an inconvenience, and I apologize for that, but the meeting at the fire station there were no votes taken, so we'd like to just make sure that you're still on board with your budget, that you think you're well enough funded to go through the year, and then we'll just take a vote on whether or not to recommend that budget to the select board tonight. So it should be
Yes.
very quick.
Okay. Were there any questions about the budget that was presented?
I didn't have any, other than the fact that I thought that the COA was slightly underfunded, but then given the fact that we're in a little bit of a crunch this year, that may have to just remain, much as I'd like to throw a whole bunch more money at the COA. Based on this current budget, is there anything you feel that we're missing, or do you think that there's anything that could possibly be taken out of this budget for this year without hurting the COA budget?
No, that is reimbursement for, yeah. No, I really felt that I was very conservative in what I put in for. It represents, any increases represented known entities that is not really in any way just sort of padding the budget. I feel like this would keep us pretty much running as is without much expansion. I'll still appeal to our friends group for the support, and maybe have to sort of, be a little bit more conservative on some of the things that we do with the Friends support. We did get a lot of support with the Cultural Council for programming, so I feel pretty strong programming for the year with all of the support that's not within the budget. And I think I've covered our existing programming schedule within the budget itself.
I know that Ron had said something about trying to take some of the burden off the Friends, and the town is obviously very grateful for how much the Friends does. And I'd like to see some of the burden lifted from the Friends, and what they actually do for the Council on Aging. Unfortunately, I don't think that this is going to be the year to have that happen. I don't
Right.
see a whole lot of fluff in this budget. Anybody on the committee feel differently?
Can I just ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm using the right columns when I'm looking at the spreadsheets. The spreadsheet we got tonight, do we use the first column, budget year to date, versus,
I think that's the fiscal 23 actual.
This is the actual for this
Yeah,
year.
that's the actual.
This is, excuse me, this is year-to-date for January 31st.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
That's big.
So none of this is 24.
None of this is
Yeah.
24, so you'll see that number in that comparison for 23.
That's what I was asking. All right, so we should still be using the spreadsheets from January 28th?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, but this tells you where they're at year-to-date.
Yep.
Am I wrong?
No, it does.
Yeah, the new one must be year to.
So this gives us a better idea of where we're really headed. If we're looking at the current year,
So through January, we're at $82,000 roughly is the expend year to date for Council on Aging.
be so wonderful if this was like alphabetical.
Page 15.
Thank you.
What page is it?
15,
15 is the
14.
new one.
14. Do I hear 13?
Can I ask a question while you're here?
You can.
So from the Saturday meeting, no changes were made to this budget. And I think we talked about increasing some things. I'm thinking, I don't have my notes with me. For some reason, I thought there was a $5,000 request or something that you.
There had been a line item of $500 requested for the Board of Directors who have been running programs, quarterly programs throughout the year at their own expense. And that was a request that was made in addition to other, supporting programs.
That's
and-
not in these numbers.
No, nothing additional got added.
And I know that you were looking to replace, I think, a freezer or a fridge.
That's come off. I think that's being done with opera money, and it's, because O&M took it out of their capital plan for it.
Yeah, it's on the list for the opera.
Yeah, it's on the list for opera funds.
Okay. Good.
That's what I thought was the case. So you're content with this budget? Am I correct that it's, I'm sure I got it right. Hold on here.
So your total budget, would it be 203,119?
203, 119, 32?
Yes,
That's correct?
yes.
Anybody else? Nobody?
I don't
Just
have
another
any.
quick question. So the gap, the spending gap that we're trying to cover right now is still what it was
Wrong.
from the other night? Is it 900,000 we're trying to reduce?
Well, it's kind of been reduced somewhat.
What's that new number?
The department heads are coming back to me now with certain reductions in their budgets that won't kill them, and hopefully will reduce that gap that we gotta get to, so. So that's not in this for tonight.
Gotcha.
But you don't see this number going down from the 203, 119?
No, that's a bare bone
Okay.
budget, so that's not one that we are touching.
Anyone else? Hearing none, I'll take a motion on this $203,119.32 to be recommended to the select board.
I'd make a motion to recommend the Council on Aging budget to the Select Board for $203,119.32.
Have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to recommend to the select board $203,119.32 for the budget for FY '24 for the Council on Aging. Any other discussion? Yes, sir.
So, obviously, just catching up, does that include any increase?
That's it. That's the same budget we discussed at the fire station.
But we had talked about trying to put some extra money into the budget.
Yeah, but we don't have any, so we're gonna leave it the way it is for now, and they're not gonna cut anything, 'cause it's pretty much a bare bones budget. I know you talked about the Friends having less involvement.
I
and
mean,
we-
we're financing about $5,000 worth of the operating cost.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, what we want to do is go through this process of seeing what can be cut out of the budgets on other departments, see what the bottom line is, and then if there's monies there to start taking care of the lower end budgets by doing something like that. But right now, we're trying to look at kind of a freeze until we get to that point.
Trying to find a place where we're gonna cut about $800,000-900,000 out of that overall.
No, I get it. It's just that, out of a $49 million budget, to have a
I don't disagree.
outside 501c3 having to fund operating costs
Disagree.
seems extreme. I mean, if we weren't there to help.
That's yours too. So, well, I'll take a motion. If you want to increase the budget by $5,000, I think that we're gonna have a challenge with it, but it means we have to go find the 5,000 someplace else. And I don't have any issue with, don't get me, I don't have no problem with doing that. I think the COA, along with rec, along with veterans, has been underfunded. It's no secret. That's what I think. I think we sorely underfund those budgets, and I think we do it at their expense. So if you want to throw $5,000 more on this and turn it into 208,119.32, I'll gladly take that amendment, and we'll figure it out.
Well, I guess and I apologize for being late. I didn't remember until Pat texted me that Ashley had said she could do 6:30 instead of 7, because it's normally we had to do 7, so I apologize for arriving late. Did we get an update? Last week, there was a lot of question as to exactly whether we were truly $900,000 in debt. There were
At
things
this
that
point
went
in
back and
time,
forth.
I believe that number is still solid.
Have we run back through the revenue projections to make sure that those are right?
So right now, before any cuts, it's about 884. So I think increasing these budgets, any of them, as we go through this, at this point, would send the wrong message to other departments, that they're looking to make some substantial cuts in. $5,000 won't kill the budget on this end. I think it's just something I'd rather hold off if we're gonna do any increases until we get to that point where we feel comfortable doing that.
I guess my
And,
only
and
point
there's,
is
and,
that-
there may be that leeway, as we go through this.
I guess my only point is that all the other budgets we're gonna be looking at, they have their full operating costs funded. The COA does not have their full operating costs funded. So you're asking for an outside organization.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Ron. And if the board wants to do that, that's fine. We'll deal with that.
Well,
I entertain the amendment, and honestly and truly, I mean, every year it comes down to this. And every year, we seem to sweep the COA and rec and the veterans, just kind of like stick them in their corner someplace, and we gotta worry about all these other big deals that are going on. I'm very grateful that the school knuckled down. They took a lot of stuff out of capital. They shaved their budget. I was with Bob 3 hours on Friday. I was 2 hours there today. We met with the chief. Everybody in every department is coming and saying, I don't need this, I don't need that, take this out, take this out. And we have a COA that is barely funded. And I don't see why we shouldn't throw the $5,000 in there. Like I said, I'll gladly take the amendment and let the selectmen do what they want to do with it.
I'd like to make that amendment to add the $5,000 into the budget.
I need a second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to increase the Council on Aging budget per amendment to a sum now total of 208,119.32. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimous. So we're going to increase that to 208,132.
And again, I understand the argument, Bob, that you made. It's just that the other departments have their full operating cost at least kept. We're just trying to have the full operating cost covered for the COA.
Yeah. No, I understand. And,
I think it's a distinction from, that. I mean, if other departments are gonna complain, I think it's a reasonable argument to say we're covering their full operating costs.
right. Yeah, and I don't think anybody's going to complain for the COA. I'm sure not going to
I
complain.
might have read that number wrong. Ashley, what did I give you?
I didn't write it down.
208,139.32?
119.32.
119.32, thank you.
So 5,000.
All right, thank you, I appreciate you letting me catch up on that.
There you go. See how easy that was?
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Connie.
Thank you.
Good luck with the select board. About town clerk, Cara? You're next.
Page 8. No, tab 8, page 9.
Good evening.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Oops.
You know, we're gonna take 5,000 out of your budget now to pay.
Ben, you're gonna have to do a presidential primary.
We don't have a choice, I'm sorry.
I'll go on vacation.
That'll scare us.
Go on this one.
Just bear with me a second, I'm trying to find it. We got a page?
It's on page 4 of the actuals and page 9 of the budget.
Of course it is.
You're welcome. I got, well, we got nothing else to do, it's fine.
Oh, yeah, here it is, town clerk. Page 4. All right, hi, Cara.
Hi. We'll start again. Gosh, I'm
How can you
hoping,
help us?
I don't see anything in here I can cut, unfortunately, and we always run our budget pretty lean. Some of the increases are outside of our control for printing and supplies. I'm hoping and praying that I added enough to cover those. We've changed our technology slightly with our poll pads and the clickers for town meeting. There should be a small fee increase to use the poll pads. It's like a subscription fee to, set them up every year. We'll use them at town meeting. We'll use them at the local election. And we'll also have the big presidential primary hit during this budget.
You're gonna
see.
have enough in postage?
I'm hoping, but I have some good news. The state just gave back just under $9,000 for the expenses that we had during the state primary and the state election. So that helps, and that's where that money goes back into to cover some of those things and offset those.
I mean, I'm looking at it now, I certainly don't see a whole lot of waste in here. $425 office supplies, $350 operating supplies. I know it breaks up into two, because you got elections also.
Right.
But I assume the regular salaries and elections is everybody that works.
That's all election workers. And the pay for the maintenance people for setup come out of there as well.
And even that $4,000 in postage on that, on top of the other side, you keep them separate, so.
Yep. The postage on the regular town clerk portion is for bulk rate postage for census. We mail out to over 5,000 households, so that's usually about 3,000 something. So that's just to be careful in case we have a few more captured that we need to cover.
How do you feel about election workers? I know in the last year or the year before, you've had to struggle to get enough.
I mean, it's tough ever since COVID. People are funny about, wanting to spend that much time with other people, but I have a really great group. It's just that people are taking advantage now of going back to Florida, so I have a lot of snowbirds. And, I mean, we've been just lucky enough. During the last election, we had 2 people come down the night before with COVID. So that was almost disastrous, but we were able to sub in and get 2 more people. We used a few helpers from the high school so that the kids could get their community service hours, and they came in and sat with a poll pad and tried to direct people to their precincts. It was really new for everyone, and I just think the public thought when they walked up to it that they had to check in that way. So this year we're going to try to put our board back up as well, with precincts listed on it, and then just have that person maybe floating to see if anybody needs help, rather than sitting at
Anybody
a
listening
desk.
to this, if they're interested in maybe helping, they could get in touch with you?
Yep, and I've got a young lady coming in tomorrow from the high school. She just needs 2 more hours, she said, and she's going to come in and help open census. So we try to use our volunteer help when we can. But, I mean, you're talking about 16, 17-hour days.
So it's tough. Sometimes we have to split the day.
You mean for the actual elections?
For the actual elections, and we try not to do that, but there's a few election workers that we kind of have to do that for. They can't see at night, you know, they want to get out of there before dark, whatnot. So it would be nice, you know, we'll cast our web out there and see if we can get a few more just to help with those situations. And in the event that someone becomes ill, I think we need to have that.
Carl, on your town clerk operating, you seem to be already short in some of your budget categories year-to-date, and we've still got 4 months to go.
I'm a little,
Postage is over. Operating supplies are over, dues and memberships are over. In-state travel is over. What are your thoughts about the shortfalls here? Especially
well-
postage. We ran into this before.
Right.
Yet your other postage account on the election side is untouched. Is any of that getting
I think
commingled?
it's just putting the bills over to the other side. That's what we have to do. We can commingle those. So it could be that when we were,
So we better off just to give you a single solitary postage line
it might be
for
better.
both the, can we do that, Sue?
It might be better. It might make it neater.
But do you need the breakout?
Well, the breakout, when we started this vote by mail, it was nice to be able to see. We can actually kind of gauge where we were
You
with
can put them
it.
both in the same line and have subcategories, can't you? So you could put postage,
Yeah.
and then you could put down a subcategory of the clerk side of things and the election side of things, so you still have numbers, but it wouldn't show that one account was short.
She just needs to be able to report to the state what she wants reimbursement for. So if you put one postage line item, sorry, she has to be able to break it out, what she spent on elections and what was clerk related.
But we could do that actually in the budget with two subcategories, could we not? Why don't we just do that?
It might make it easier.
So I remember this 4 or 5 years ago, when we were way over on one and way under on another, and I remember you were all upset about it, because some of the stuff was legitimately elections, but
Right.
you had just gotten elected, you didn't really know, and it just, we got it squared away.
Right.
But it just would make more sense to me. I'd like to keep this as simple as possible.
Right.
It just makes it much more transparent.
Well, it could be that when the census bill came in, Donna put it under the postage portion of it, under that one, when the rest of it should have gone under the elections portion of it. I think it's just not categorized right, but
Okay. That's all I got. Anybody else?
Is the state funding the reimbursement 100%?
not 100%,
No.
mostly. And they know what our number was for ballots, so they base it on that, and then they ask us for any additional expenses that we had. We're not allowed to count for salaries, overtime salaries for regular workers. It's basically if we have additional workers come in which we did have to have election workers come in, because we ran a pre-processing where we open the ballots ahead of time, store them, and then we select a day where we actually run those ballots that we receive for early voting and vote by mail ahead of time, because it would be impossible to do at the polls. We would not be able to do that. So you're paying election workers to come in to do that, and usually I think we had 2 teams, I think 6 to 7 people working extra, so. And that's covered under the salary portion. We were able to squeeze that out of there. We didn't go over on that.
So you're comfortable with this budget?
Comfortable, I know I can't ask for more. If I could get a little more, just to make sure that the wolf won't be at the door for some things that I can't anticipate. I did my best to try to project the price increases, but I don't really have hard figures for that. Because as they change things, then we know we need new things. We need to change the way that we do things.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I know we're up against a budget deficit and we're trying to keep the budget where it is. But if we were in a different circumstance, I'd be interested to know if there was additional money available, where would you direct it to go?
If like a wish list?
What would be the
We
top
ask
of your
you
wish
that
list?
every year anyway.
Yeah, you do that anyhow. But the codification, We were gonna look to see if there was any ARPA funds for that, but that's something really important that the town started back in.
What is that now?
Codification of the bylaws. So general code comes in, they go through what you have so far. The town entered into an agreement or a contract, I think back in 2015. I wasn't aware of it. In 2020, they came and said, "Oh, we're almost done with it." And I'm like, "Almost done with what?" And I sent it upstairs. I think Mr. LaFawn looked at it, and I think Elaine commented that it was out of contract. The contract had expired by then, but it's been left undone. And so I reopened the negotiations with them just like 2 weeks ago, and they said that we would have to go back to 2017 forward, give them every single thing that was passed at town meeting, and then they could give me another estimate on what it would cost. Along with that comes a subscription to the town for E-code, and everybody would get it. Everybody in the town could have it, actually. And it allows you to look at the bylaws. They maintain those bylaws. Nothing can be changed on those bylaws unless it's submitted to them. And they have the Attorney General's approval on all of them.
And is this something most towns do?
Most towns do, yeah. And I guess ours was in a flux, and we were in the middle of doing something back in 2015 that
So
needs to
it
be.
gives us, electronic view of any bylaw. We were talking about that.
Be able to have that on your phone. You could just say a keyword if you wanted to look something up. You have the laws right there at your fingertips. It's a tool that towns
It's
use.
open to anybody in the town.
Anybody, yep.
I think it's a great idea. The issue comes that we pass bylaws at town meeting and the minutes are very accurate, and then somewhere along the line, the bylaws don't get updated based on the latest town meeting. So we look at a current bylaw and it comes out that this bylaw was changed 5 years ago at town meeting, and it never got updated in the bylaws. And it's not the clerk's fault. You can't point the finger at anybody, because after the town meeting, then there's elections, and there's just all kinds of stuff going on. So somewhere along the line, I'm sure that some of this stuff falls through the cracks.
Is this something that that the codification process would actually research into to make sure
They
we're getting it right?
research it, they do a whole legal review, and then they give a consultation. They do a legal consultation, and they let us know where our bylaws are weak, where they're conflicting sometimes with state statute, and things that they've noticed that should change.
And is it possible they might find some of the stuff that might have slipped through the cracks?
They do,
Okay.
they
And
do.
the other thing is that if you think about it, we pass these bylaws at town meeting, they get sent off to the AG's office, who throws them at the bottom of the pile. We may not hear back we just heard back on the moratorium, that was what, 6
Yep,
months?
November, it took all that
Before
time.
before we even knew what had happened at town meeting, whether these were legal bylaws or not. So you're not gonna put them in your bylaws until the AG's office
Yeah, you're
has
not
signed
allowed
off
to
on 'em. Now
publish. Mm-hmm.
we're into December, and we're back to budget season again.
Just out of interest, what would that cost be if,
They thought somewhere around $15,000 a year. That's what they thought. But with this case, with the ARPA funds, if we can use it, he said it
That'd be
was
great if
covered
the ARPA
under
funds could use it.
infrastructure and technology.
There's no
So,
upfront cost to get us to you said, to get us to the point.
This is what they said to get us where we were before. I think before they had said something about there was like another $10,000, but the town had already spent monies to get us to that point. We want to finish at least what they've done. And then from there, we have to go back to 2017. That's what they had up to, is 2017.
so at this point, given the budget restrictions, we're hoping ARPA might be able to come up
For
with
now, and then going forward, we could look at it. At least we'd be short up until that point, you know?
Okay.
I mean, I think it would save us the 15 grand a year in legal fees,
Yeah, probably.
It could,
just to get opinions on how to interpret some of these bylaws that should really never have to be contacted. We should never have to contact an attorney to figure out what our bylaw says. I mean, this isn't rocket science, and it shouldn't be worded as such. And the trouble is, a lot of the bylaws are written so ambiguously that we hear it all the time. Well, my opinion, and we get this from council. My interpretation of the bylaw, my opinion is this is what it says. Yeah, but that's not what anybody else thinks it says. So.
Well, just like we're submitting an article to adjust the FinCom bylaw, because the FinCom bylaw had this vague wording, that no officer can serve, and we had to go to council to say, what's your interpretation of officer? And there are different interpretations of what officer is. So we took that out completely and said member as opposed to officer, so, anyway, I get your point. So, yeah, if hopefully if ARPA can come through, at least keep some momentum going. that'd
Would
be
you, when you, if ARPA can do it, that's great. If they can't do it, then, you know, perhaps you can let us know, later into the process what you've come up with for numbers, and maybe we'll see where it's at that point. But I think I think it's just smart, it's a smart investment. May not be a great investment today, but because of where we're at, but I think it's a smart investment going down.
I think you have a valid point that it could save us in the equivalent in legal fees.
$340, $245 an hour now for legal.
Wow.
Sure wouldn't take much to eat up, you know, 12 or 15 grand.
Mr. Chair, so are they up to date when they were codifying the records to 17?
They stopped, I think they began in 2015, and that's where they said they left off. They would need new from me from 2017 forward, but they never fully finished the 2016. I'll go back and I'll see if I can find the old email, and I'll give it to you now, and maybe you can take a look at that and see if it's, you know, where the legal opinions were.
And then we need something by the 28th,
Yep.
price. Okay.
I'm working on it. I have to upload everything. Yeah, I know. Here we are. Yep.
Okay. So are you comfortable then, am I correct in these numbers, 162, 152, 84, and 35,035? Are those the correct numbers?
I believe so. The sheet I have is from October of 2022, so if nothing has really changed from there, then
That's right.
that's where I am.
162, 152, 84, and it looks like 35,035.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I just had one question, Kara. When we had met on that Saturday meeting, you mentioned you thought there was a prior out-town meeting article for tablets.
Oh, for the tabulators. So at one town meeting, I believe it was in 2020, or just before 2020, the town administrator had put it in. At the time, everybody was really unsure of old equipment. And then after the 2020 election, people were really paranoid about the new equipment that was out there. So we held off on purchasing any new equipment. We wanted to wait and see what the issues were with the image cast, the scanning equipment that they had out there. And they've already come out with like maybe 3 more models since then. I'm not sure right now what the quote would be for the latest and greatest equipment. But as I said that day, I'm still very comfortable using my old equipment. Some of the other clerks around me are jealous that I still have my old equipment because it's really fast. Go figure. It's not the latest and the greatest, but it's faster. So if that money is still out there, I mean, that might be something we should probably get through this next year and then maybe look to go into the new equipment.
Well, if it was voted on at town meeting, was there an amount, do you remember?
It was around $20,000. I think I have it.
That's still sitting in
It's still there.
the weeds someplace?
I think maybe it's down to 19 now. $19,045 was left of it, and that was back in 2022. The original amount, I believe, was $20,570.
So we
So
can
at
leave
some
that.
point, if you decide you want to move forward, you have that money that's
Right.
already been voted and available to you.
That would be good. And then, you know, if I need more, I could wait till the next year, because we need to have at least 4, so we have a backup, a spare.
Well, we might be going to 4 precincts. fairly
And if we
soon,
go
too.
into 4 precincts, then we're gonna need 5.
Yeah, but how soon before we would know that?
About the equipment?
No, about the precincts.
About the precincts?
Didn't
Well,
that just
we
get
do that
certified to
after
leave it at 3?
census, when we see how many registered voters we have. So you can't have more than 4,000 registered voters in each precinct. So we're just about to that number.
We're at the line, right?
We're near the line, yes. Yeah.
So odds are,
So normally we'd say we'd be good for the next 10 years because we won't take a decennial census again until in another 10 years. We just did it. But if we have a huge amount of growth and that they see in the state system that we've added all these registered voters in, they're going to make us take on another precinct. I don't think the expenses would be too great. I believe we could still hold them all under one roof, under one gym, which would be fine. but it's just adding on that additional equipment. And the companies that I work with would be willing to rent us equipment if we needed it. Other towns would rent us equipment if we needed it. So it's not a do or die that we'd get caught without, you know, a tabulator.
Okay.
So,
Good, thank you.
Anybody else? I'll take a motion.
Okay, I would make a motion to recommend to the select board the town of Clark budget for $162,152.84, as well as the election and registration budget for $35,035.
Second?
Motion made and seconded to recommend to the select board the town clerk's budget of 162,152.84 and elections of 35,035. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous.
thank you.
Cara.
Thank you.
Let us know, keep us up to date on that, and then we'll find out. Bob's working real hard on that ARPA money too, so it looks like they're coughing up some money for software.
Tab 15, page 42.
We have recreation and veterans. I'll let you guys flip a coin. Gonna fight her for it. Let's do recreation's next on the list. Hi, Emily, how are you?
Page 42.
Since the chairman couldn't come with me, I also have Kyle Miller, who's the vice chair of recreation here. And for those who don't know me, I'm Emily Slavin. I am the recreation coordinator here, part-time position.
Thank you for coming tonight. This is, well, you know exactly how I feel. This is sadly underfunded, has been for a long time. I firmly believe, I think it was talked about that Saturday, that recreation, like every other town, should be an actual department in town hall. I think it should have a budget. I think it should be run that way. I think that were it not for the dedicated, incredibly difficult work that these ladies do, Mary Ross, wherever you are, God bless you, there'd be no recreation. There'd be no recreation.
We do have a full committee now,
I
which
know.
is exciting, but that is 5 people who meet once a month.
And these are volunteers.
They are,
There is no stipend paid.
except for me.
Yeah. So, you know, this is, we wouldn't do it to any other department. And I think that recreation's a big deal, especially now if CPC comes up with the funding to do the pickleball court, and we start to expand the recreation, we start to develop that property on Lakeview Street, then suddenly recreation isn't going to be some sleepy little thing anymore. It's going to have, it's going to get bigger than it is, and it should get bigger than it is.
Reminding you, as I stated on Saturday that we met, that we do make all fixes and repairs to the fields the best we can and to the playground. We are looking into when that warranty goes up on the ground of the playground. If pickleball is voted on, it was passed by CPC last week. Every week seems together. And it goes to town hall and it is voted on. We have committed that we will maintain that piece of property and any repairs through the recreation. So if it does not come from our budget, will have to come from our revolving. And I'll just give you a quick update with our software, porta potties, and our free events. It's pretty much over half of our budget, right? More than half of our budget right there. Porta potties are coming in around over 8,000. We also will need to house them at pickleball area, which will be more likely a lot of year round since this winter hasn't been crazy. People would be playing. So, and we didn't put a porta potty at the ice skating rink because unfortunately we only got less than 24 hours this year. But next year, hopefully we will have one there too. So you're talking probably 12, 15,000 in porta potties. So I just wanted to be clear with that.
I just think that recreation is something that we really need to look at and take much more seriously than we do, but That's only one person's opinion.
So we did ask for an increase due to the fact that the prices have gone up on stuff, including the software is at 3,500. We know that probably will go up. And that is required for recreation to have. All recreations in all towns must use the MyRec software. It's just, it is what it is on that.
So if, on the software, then, you say it's 3,500?
I think it was 3,500 this year, but it's gone up each year, just as everything else has. So-
Is that in the budget now? or-
Yes, so we pay for that out of the budget along
Yep.
with the porta potties and our free events. Everything else, we try to, use our budget and then we go into our revolving. We do have a revolving, but we also need that for repairs that come up that we don't know about. So we still have a fence to repair at the softball field. We have a wish list always.
Are the leagues paying,
So currently, the leagues pay $15 a head. That will have to increase, but we need to sit down and work that out. And once we increase it, we need to give them enough time that they put it into their registration fees. So our goal is to increase that next year. That goes into a separate fund that is an O&M fund where Dave uses that for fertilizer and all of that. And so he uses that. I do the collecting. I'm the bill collector, but I give it to the OM and it's in a separate account that he uses for maintenance on the town fields.
And how
Which is not even close to what it costs to maintain those fields.
You made a statement that Saturday that you and Mary together are writing checks out of your personal accounts.
Correct. Yeah, that always has bothered me. Sue, for the first year this year, actually helped us out. We order gingerbread houses that we give out, and we work with Shane's Food Pantry to have a drop-off night that night. We feel like that's huge for the community. So gingerbread houses go for $1,000 if we hand out about 1,000 of them. I mean, about 100 of them, they go for about $1,000. In years past, I've paid for that on my personal credit card, and then I have to wait for reimbursement. This year, Sue worked with me after our first budget meeting. She said that she would help us, and she was able to. I gave her the login, and she was able to purchase those and have them shipped for us. But most time, Mary or myself or some of the other committee members, Kyle himself, with picnic tables and so forth, we pay out of our own and then hopefully get reimbursed, which honestly is not a really good thing. As if something happened to me, Mary, or any other committee members, how are their loved ones going to prove that? It's just, or nor should they have to. So that's something that Sue and I are trying to work out, but I do think the town needs a little bigger of a credit card that we could utilize and not be so many hoops.
And they don't get reimbursed the sales tax.
No, if I
So
haven't
they pay
found
the
a
sales
place,
tax,
yeah.
but we can't reimburse them the sales tax.
Yeah, Mary does that often because it's hard to get set up with everything. If we're going to order Easter eggs, we were just looking at it at our last meeting, we like to pre-order. I'm going to look for the best price. That could be Amazon, that could be BJ's, that could be Walmart, or it could be Oriental Trading. I'm only set up at some of those as a non-profit. So yeah, but any of us really don't care. But it was something that we did mention. I'm not sure if you have a committee in the future, they might not feel like we do.
I just think it's something we should look into. This has been 5 years that I've seen this, and I think John Carter dealt with it during his tenure on FinCom, and I don't see it getting any smaller. I see every year the costs are going up. I think that, were it not for you and Mary and the other volunteers, but that's just it. They're volunteers. They have lives.
Mm-hmm.
So, we operate as a committee. Capital Outlay operates as a committee, but we have lives.
Yeah.
We're not town employees that are expected to be here 35 hours a week.
And truly, I don't believe recreation would have done the things that it's done in the town if we weren't able to have so many summer programs. We do, as I mentioned on that Saturday, we try to make $5 to $10 on any student or participant of a program so that we can build our revolving to have that backup for any repairs or anything like that. So, we asked for a small increase. I stand by it, understand if we can't, but it would be foolish for me not to ask.
So you're okay with this 56,070?
But I think that's also minus, is that with also my pay involved in that?
Yes.
Yes. So that's,
Yes, regular salaries and then other professional services, which I assume that doesn't have a definitional line, so that we really, what is in that, do you know?
I don't know. I'm still confused on what everything's called. I don't know. I'm overwhelmed with
So
those
is
numbers.
the increase included in that number or not?
So 33,120 would be our recreation budget, and then the salary is 22,950.
Right, but what I'm saying is the 33,120 is in a line item here that says other professional services.
Yeah,
And we're trying to get away from the other
You just want to know what's in.
without some kind of a definition of what
yeah,
is
that's
in
our
the
porta
other.
potties, everything I just mentioned, our software repairs, that's everything. Our free, that's everything.
So if this turns into a real department in the town, this needs to be much more definitive.
Yeah, it will be.
To have that kind of money hanging out with the word other attached to it raises all kinds of questions with people who, who just, what is this, what is this?
But I also think we need to really think before we become a department, in the fact that if you don't have anywhere to house people, like any place to do things, as I stated on that Saturday, it makes it difficult. So I think there's a lot of further discussion that needs to be
Sure.
done.
Sure.
But yeah, that other is our entire, everything we do. Yeah, our budget.
So you're content with this number. Anybody else?
Whoa.
Well, maybe somebody.
That
else.
actually is a small increase for us.
Have you guys looked at like a building, or have you guys been searching for a rec center, or has it been any?
She's waiting for the fire station next door.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that. We are storing some stuff in there right now.
Police station has a nice building behind it.
Yeah, I wouldn't
You guys
mind
don't
that
use that, do
either.
you?
I'll take anything. Currently, we store our stuff in closets down here at the town hall. I have a small office that says mailroom on it. So that's where I'm actually in there. It's not the mailroom. And we also store things in the old fire station. We store things in the DPW. We are everywhere.
But you're looking for an activity space.
I'm looking for an activity space. Yep. Since COVID, getting in the schools is a harder thing.
Well, that's another one of the reasons why last meeting I asked for a master plan for the Lakeview Street property. Because there's a lot of property there, and we can find a way to combine some COA with some recreation, with some conservation commission. That's a great piece of property.
And there's maybe even grant money out there to.
Well, that's what I'm thinking, Now, I know that there's restrictions on the conservation land from a conservation standpoint, but there's still a lot of room in that building, and there's no rule that says we can't store stuff in there.
Well, we will not be going back to CPC for anything recreation in a very long time. They made that very clear to me on multiple occasions.
Until next year.
Go back.
No, I
Go
will
back
not.
next year,
after.
don't worry about it.
I won't.
I just wanted to make the point that I brought out at the Saturday meeting, which was that
I have.
Recreation Department is looked at, and everyone realizes how much they are short, the money they actually need to run they run a great program, and people are making sacrifices to make it work the way it does. The Lions teamed up with them, and we
Yeah.
were able to turn $3,500 over, which they desperately needed to
Yeah,
help
we're
fund their
excited
programs.
to do a good project for that.
So that, I think it just underscores, while they may still be within their operating budget, we've said, compared to other towns, it's not even,
That's right.
it's not even realistic what we're doing.
And we really need to make sure we maintain the properties that we did go in front of the CPC. It's so, yeah. And we
Yeah,
have,
we can't if they do put a pickleball court in, it can't look like the tennis court 10 years from now.
no, and we know that, and we promise that, and
It
just the
just
same
can't.
thing with the playground. I don't want that to look, we buy all new sand toys every year, if they're needed, Mary's husband does the maintenance down there with the blower to make sure the sand is in the sandbox. We go down and pick up trash. All of us volunteers pull in every weekend and pick up if there's any trash. We do all of that to maintain that on this budget. So,
That and the revolving account,
yeah, in our revolving account.
which we don't want to run that down to zero either.
But I do want to make that clear that we do take that very seriously as far as the maintenance.
There's no doubt. We've never doubted that.
Well, I think some people in the town don't realize that, so we just want to make
There's
sure
people
that's
that
clear.
don't realize anything, so don't worry about it.
We just want to make sure that's very clear.
That's just, that's me being me as usual. Anybody else? I'll take a motion on the recreation.
I'll make a motion to recommend to the select board the Recreation Department for $56,070.
Second?
Motion made and seconded to recommend to the select board for the recreation department $56,070 be placed in the town warrant. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous.
I do have one question. So that pay is definitely separated out, though. We don't want it to be the two different.
It's two separate
okay.
lines.
Okay, I just want to
There's
make sure.
recreation salaries and then other.
Okay, I just want to make sure it's very separate.
And
Okay,
we'd like to really try to fix the other. Sue?
yes, I'd love
We'd like
better
to
names.
fix the other, whether we become subcategories or how we do that. We'd very much like to fix the other.
Yep.
The thing with the other for rec is that they're sending us invoices for our department to pay. And rather than have multiple account numbers, it's easier to just have it under other because their budget is so small. To separate out $30 for postage or $300 for this or $8,000 for porta potties. Right now, until you make it a true department, it's easier for them to deal with salaries and expenses.
I appreciate that, but we pay people a lot of money to work in that finance department, and I don't like seeing $33,000 on an other line.
It actually is easier for Emily.
I appreciate that it's
She's
easier
the one
for
who asked
Emily. I
for
have no
it.
problem with that. Emily, when you submit the bills, you can put a little notation as to what they're for, but this causes, people won't question it because it's recreation, but it's $33,000 attached to the word other. And we're in a situation now, we're trying to cut almost $900,000 out of a budget, and we're trying to get it across to everybody that there's absolutely no waste in this budget. And they start looking at words like other, and I've heard this for 3 years from other people that have commented. They see, what the hell is other professional service? What's other purchase services? And you say, well, it's, you start going down a list, and they say, well, how come you can't list that? So this year, we did have it broken up. Some of the departments put in what the others, and we didn't need exact amounts. We just needed a definition. Other meant this, 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 and this. So people could look at it and say, okay, now I get it. So you could have the others and just say it's porta potties, it's, I understand that, but I'm trying to keep this as transparent as possible. And I think it also helps to create a department eventually, because you end up seeing how much more there is involved in just, I don't think that a lot of people have, unless they got their kids really involved in rec, I don't think they know all you go through. They know there's a nice playground, and they're all down there playing during the day, and the kids all go home at night, and they don't know you come in on Saturdays and pick up the trash. They just assume that, that the town does that.
Well, they do. I don't want to take that away from Dave's people. They take the trash out. We just go and maintain, like walk around, pick up the beer cans. And then it calls us.
That's awesome. All right, well, thank you. Last but not least, well, almost last but not least, veterans. Thanks, Emily.
I don't understand why it's such a big deal to put an account line on a bill.
I don't either.
I get it's small,
We'll,
we have everything else.
we'll get more into discussion with that.
I can just, that's okay.
I mean, you wouldn't do your home budget that way. Although I try to when I get caught every time I do. Gene gets upset. What does this say, other?
Thanks, Bob.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you?
Wonderful. Like this? Okay. Good evening.
This is your opportunity.
Ugh.
Okay, veterans. I'm not even going to get into salaries. I'm looking at, well, we'll probably have to wait for the finance director to come back in, but I see seminar and training, other purchase services, office supplies, operating supplies, in-state travel, and dues and membership. Then I see the Veterans Emergency Fund. I'm assuming that the Veterans Emergency Fund, that $4,800,
Yes.
is really that respect fund that we spoke about? Is that going to be the wreath at the graves? Is that going to be putting a veteran's name on the stone? Is that going to be the discretionary account, so if a guy comes in and is up against it, you can write him a check? Is that what that 4,800 is for?
That is not what that's for.
That's great. Then where is the money that I've asked for 3 times to be put into this budget?
So nothing has changed since we last met. But can you see the account underneath it, the veterans recognition?
I don't see a veteran's recognition.
That just got created and it's visible. We have to discuss. Oh, no, wait.
I see veterans
veterans-
benefits for $300,000. I don't see recognition.
So if you look at there's another benefits veterans that has 4,800 in it. That should be
That says emergency fund.
this one,
Right here. Yeah, Veterans Emergency Fund, $4,800.
this one, and then there's that one too.
So,
So that should be in here.
yeah.
This should be in there.
Drop down, yeah.
Yeah, but wreaths at the grave aren't emergency
Yeah.
services.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Wreaths at the grave are not emergency
No.
services.
So I can't see the same, I don't have the permissions to see the same way that you do.
Believe me, I don't have any permissions at all. I only look at what I get sent to me.
So there is a $4,800 in addition to the Veterans Emergency Fund. It's in a different
So
account.
it's $9,600?
So it's 40, if I may. So it's 4,800 for the Veterans Emergency Fund, which will be used by the Veteran Services for somebody who has a crisis.
That was.
And that, so that's the 4,800. The other 4,800 is for the benefits. Is that what you have it under,
I
benefits?
don't know why that, I
Where
think
did
it
that
got
come
put
from?
in
I don't-
after.
Did you have an account number for the other one?
None of us have it.
What's an 82, it says 82560-902-5370. Oh, it was before I could see the other account. Because they just got created.
It may be the same one.
Well, maybe we can just all take a recess while we wait for the finance director to come back in
Yeah,
for her
we'll
coffee break.
take a look at this. If we get into something else,
Yeah.
part of the other issue on the veterans benefits is the reimbursement. And it was funded for 235,000, and that's recovered by the state, 70%. The request was 300,000, but that's way over what, if you look at the actuals right now, I think they're around 98,000.
They are.
Yeah.
And that's 7 months worth, so.
Yes, but the
So
4,800 is not
they're-
in here.
So they're requesting to reduce that, actually. It's one of the reductions to 250 from
Where-
from
So the
300.
300 is going down to
Down to
250. It's going to
250.
affect
Yep.
just the veterans benefit line.
That's the one
Correct.
that's reimbursable, 75%, yes.
And so you want to cut your end of it down to 250.
It's a little high, yeah. It was before we knew what was gonna happen with the COLA increases and everything like that. So now that I kind of went over more figures, 250 should be just enough.
So take that off the bottom. 50,000.
So is that decreasing the overall budget, Bob, then by
Yeah, by
50,000?
that 50,000. That's,
So would I be correct? So it'd be 300 plus, well, it'd be 250 plus the 95, 475 plus 11,050 plus 79, 625?
No, but I think that 94,000 includes the 79, the 11, and the 48.
Oh, okay, I see it. So it's going to be 250 plus the 95, 475.
Yeah.
So we're still back to the $4,800, and we don't have the second $4,800 line in
yeah, I
here.
don't.
I do, that's.
Yeah, I know it, but
And I
Is it
don't-
within that total amount?
No, it's a separate account.
So
So I'm not sure, oh, and the total amount, can I see that? I can't even see a total amount.
So Bob, if we,
Yes, it should be in there. Yes.
so between the 250 that we're reducing to 302, and then the 95, 475, there are two $4,800 accounts.
There's
No,
one,
there's
there's
just
one
No, I'm
already.
asking, no,
Listed, yeah, so
I'm asking
we'll add
over
the
here.
Second one, the second 48.
Would be inclusive within that 95,000.
No, it's additional.
No, it's
We're
additional,
out 40, we're out 4,800.
right? Because that's
No,
not,
'cause-
it's not in my calculation of the
When,
bottom
what is
line.
that printed out from?
January 28th.
I don't think, I don't think we were looking for 4,800 in the discretionary account, and I know you weren't looking for 4,800 to do the Reese. So I don't think,
So it's not just the wreaths.
I don't think
That's
we
the one
needed,
that-
you didn't need $9,600. We were trying to put, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I am wrong, $3,500 in a discretionary account, so you'd
Yes.
have the ability to pay somebody if they're up against it. And then there was like 1,500 for the Reese,
That's what it
and there was some flags at the Grace for Memorial Day, and there was some putting a name on a stone, that kind of stuff. There were some names we need to add to the monument.
Right. So
So-
that was supposed to be the 40,
So
the
that was
35.
4,800?
No, I think that was the 3,500.
All right, so I have a couple
Okay, so
questions
That's
here.
the other purchase service.
That's
Yeah.
purchase Services.
Sue?
That is through Plymouth, right, the agent.
Yeah. So the 3,500 other purchase services is what we've kind of always had as we get assistance from the Plymouth VSO also right now. So, it's up to you. I mean, we needed another account so that we can do
I
the
agree.
monuments and stuff like that,
I
but
absolutely
it's
agree.
reimbursable. So I guess it wouldn't, the 4,800 should just be added into the,
I didn't want to do that. We were going to
Right.
do it as a veterans,
right?
we weren't going to do it as emergency fund because it's not an emergency to put Reese at a grave. We were going to do
Right.
it as a recognition or as a respect account or
So a
something like that.
separate line item.
As a separate,
Right.
Sue? We don't have the $4,800, so there's two $4,800 line items in the veterans account. One's for emergency services and one is for what would ultimately be a respect account or recognition account that we had talked about on that Saturday.
Yeah, Bob, I guess my question is, if we're reducing the 300,000 to 250,000,
Right.
and then add in the 95,475, does that number, which comes to 345, 475, include the extra 4,800 or just the original
No,
4,800?
just the original.
One
Okay, that's, I just wanted to be clear on that.
She has a different form that,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking if if they just saved us $50,000, maybe we could
Oh, I don't have a problem
grab
with
the
that.
4,800
Is the
back.
4,800 adequate or will less than that work for you? Tell me what you want.
If we can do, it costs a lot to get the names added and things like that to the monument, unless you can get it all together and get everybody's names all at once. So if we can do around that number in addition to, that would be extremely
All
helpful.
right, so let's then, so we'd be taking the 250,000 instead of 300,000 and adding it to the 95,475 and then adding another $4,800 to that number,
To bring it to 350, 275.
350,275.
On both of those line items that we're talking about, we've in the past have had no ability to help.
Right.
Or whatever, none whatsoever. So it's, the need has been going up quite steadily. We get a lot of requests.
Well, when you suggested it last year, I was shocked that, if somebody came in that was a veteran and they were getting their lights shut off, he spent 42 phone calls trying to find some agency that would come in and try to help out.
That's what we
Where
did
we should really have a discretionary account that, we're not gonna pay the guy's mortgage, but we certainly can keep his lights on and work a deal with the light company. This is the least we can do.
And the best you could do before was by private enterprises. The main one we used to rely on was Hydrea for Heroes in Plymouth, and they're non-funded, so it's the struggle to get people.
Yeah, everything fizzled out, so that would be helpful.
So if we increase to the 350, 275, we can add an extra line item, whatever they want to name it, for 4,800.
That's right. And we'll call it, pick a name that works.
Fun.
Whether we discussed this before, we come up with a couple of catchy names, but I think a respect account or something, recognition, veterans recognition account, which would cover the wreaths at the graves, flags if you wanted to do them in the summertime, getting their names on the stones. It's all part of respect. It's all part of
I did it
gratitude.
by hand, did it come out right?
I just think it works. And the emergency services fund, I think that's exactly what it's intended to do.
Skills still working.
So I don't have a problem with that.
Just, I did it by hand and the calculators confirmed what I did by hand. I just want that noted.
I wasn't gonna believe you anyway. was
I
gonna go
understand.
right-
Yeah, I
was gonna
knew
go
that.
right straight over to the bean counter over there. You don't think I'd allow your arithmetic to take place here, would you?
Thank you.
I couldn't write it down.
We're
and get it
both
right.
graduates of the Weymouth school
That's
system.
exactly why I wouldn't let you do it either. All right, so anybody else?
I'll make a motion that the veterans budget this year be $350,275, including the additional line item that was just discussed.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to increase the veterans, or to approve to recommend the veterans
Yeah.
budget in the amount of $350,275, and that number is to include a $4,800 additional line item for
Whatever you
items that
want to
were
name it.
discussed, the respect account or something like that, recognition account. And make a note also, Ashley, if you would, that they've taken $50,000 off of their original proposed budget. So that there's a reduction here.
About
This would've-
45,000 now.
Well, yeah, 45,000, right, sorry. No.
Yeah, because
So
we
we're
had
giving
it.
them the 48 anyway, so they still dropped the 350 down to 250, the 300.
Well,
down to
yes, right,
250.
that's down to 250, but then we've increased to 95.
Okay, we're going way beyond that, but any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Here you go.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Welcome,
Thank you.
thank you. I appreciate the work you do with the veterans, both of you.
Labor of love.
Okay. Well, certainly not last and not least. Chief? Sorry for the delay tonight, but I knew yours was going to be a little bit more involved. I was trying to make the easy ones first. Actually, yours isn't going to be difficult really at all, but we do have capital stuff. And I think I'd like to get in, Beth, I'd like to have you do the capital on the side of this first.
Sure.
Then if the members of the capital outlay want to run home and catch Gunsmoke in time, they can, or they can stay.
Gunsmoke?
Well, I'm showing my age.
You're dating yourself.
The rifleman, I don't know.
Same thing.
Yellowstone.
Yellowstone,
Yellowstone.
yeah. Yeah, the new version of Gunsmoke.
So since we met on that Saturday, do you have any changes to capital?
Good evening. Thanks for having me tonight. As everybody said,
Right into it.
I have,
Well, since you brought it up.
Capital, so
no,
that's what we're here for.
so past 10 years, this is probably the 10th time I've been before you guys. And I think we've done a good job at expending taxpayer money all these years to make things work. And again, this year, we're prepared to work with everybody to make that happen. We've always worked with all department heads, especially our public safety department heads, to work together to come up with budgets that work, and we're going to do that again today. Obviously, we put forth several capital projects, including 3 police vehicles, some money from some new police vests, and some money to support the new hires that we're moving forward with in the next year. Out of those, we really can't cut back on the vests. We need a 12.5 to be able to purchase new bullet-resistant vests. We do have a grant that will pay for half that, but we have to expend the money before we can get it. And the money that we need for the new hires, we really need that money. So the only thing we really have that we could cut is a possibility of coming back from 3 police vehicles and cutting that back to 2 right now. That would save us between $50,000 and $60,000, depending on the equipment that's in the car. So that's where we're at right now. I don't know if that's going to be enough, but
So one cruiser, or are you gonna put off to replace the admin cruiser?
so I'd like to take that back and move forward with police vehicles instead of admin versus that, because they're actually the same thing. The admin vehicle's a little less because we don't have to have the same lights in it, but we need admin vehicles and we need marked cruisers. We've done we talked about the cruiser plan before, where we have one cruiser for each officer, and we've been doing that since 2005, and we've saved quite a bit of money on maintenance of those vehicles because we run them for so long. When I took over, we changed the outlook of the department. We added some admin positions in, detectives. We have an admin sergeant and a deputy chief and myself. Those are admin cruisers. They're not marked. They're unmarked cars, but they still have basically the same equipment in them because in this small town, we all go to calls when needed. Those vehicles over the past, I'd say 10 years, the 10 years I've been doing this, we've purchased many of those used. We've purchased my cruiser used from Marshfield for $18,500. We purchased two marked vehicles from Duxbury for $9,000 apiece. We purchased two Ford Tauruses for $2,500 apiece. We've used those and been able to make sure that we had the fleet we needed with those admin cars without going forth and getting new vehicles. But that ability to buy used cars is waning at this moment. We don't have any on the horizon except for one out of Marshfield. And with it not being there and the cars coming up in mileage, we're still going to have to replace some of those admin cars as we move forward. So we may be able to switch it around and get an admin vehicle and a marked car and make that work next year.
How many miles are on your car, Chief?
A lot. My cruiser has 184,000 miles. And we're doing everything we can to make sure this program continues and to make sure this works. All of our admin cars are up in the 150,000 mile range. So we're getting good value out of them. We have good mechanics that take care of them, that change the oil and fix the brakes. But it's a aging product. Every year it gets a little worse. So we do need to consider that. So right now I'd be willing to cut back, not willing to offer to cut back by one. And if we need to, we can look at that moving forward. We have, using this cruiser plan, we've gone, in the time that I've been doing this, we've skipped buying cruisers for 4 years out of this and been able to move. But every time we do that, we push the problem forward too. So these cars are out on the road on a daily basis, and they're the cars that are full of equipment coming to people's houses to keep them safe. So we really need to maintain them and have good vehicles for that. It's always been my philosophy that the best new cars need to be on the road and marked cars for our officers that are going to emergency calls. But we do have admin cruisers that still do go to calls because, again, we're a small department. We only have 17 of us all total. So if something bad happens, we're all going. And sometimes more than one calls happen at the same time, so we have to leave and go as well. So we do have to consider that when we move forward with purchasing vehicles.
I was on cap outlay when we worked with the chief to come up with the plan to assign an officer to each cruiser as opposed to sharing cruisers. And almost overnight, the cost of repairs went down dramatically.
And it will.
When each officer was responsible for their own vehicle.
Parker.
Pardon me?
It was Artie Parker.
Well, I think he might have been chief at the time, but
He brought that in.
well, I don't know. I think
Yes,
was it Artie?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Artie. So that, but at any rate, I know that worked with Chief Dufley after that and maintained the program because there was some resistance and
Absolutely.
to the
There's
to
nothing
doing
worse
that.
than a slip seat operation.
But anyway, it's made a huge difference, and I think that while there may be some cost for providing a cruiser to each individual police officer, it's been more than made up for the savings in not having. We had cruisers that you were running short on cruisers because you didn't have enough out on the road because they're in for repairs.
Right.
So that it's been a very successful program to do it this way.
It really has, and I know it's an investment in the town to have these cruises, and we usually try to replace 2 every year. But what it does, if we compare ourselves to other towns, to Hanson, to Hanover, to Halifax, to places that run cruises 3 shifts, we spend a lot less money in repairs because we're maintaining those cars with oil changes and brakes and stuff like that, and they're only being operated by one person. We spend less in that, and by maintaining the program we have, if we replace the 2 cars every year, we keep the program going. If we don't do that, if we go to a pool situation where we share cars, we're going to be replacing those 2 cars a year also, but you're not going to have any backup. So if we had that program, I can't come to you and say, okay, let's cut one, because we
I was going to say,
have to
it
replace
gives you the flexibility
It does.
that if you need to push it out a year,
Right.
you can do that, which
And
you
that's-
wouldn't have if they were being run into the ground.
Absolutely, and we've used that flexibility during the 10 years that I've been here 4 times where we said, sorry, we need something more, and we're gonna push off buying cruisers, and we can always do that. But again, we move the goalpost a little bit, and it's hard to get back. So if we maintain it, we're doing a lot better off than if we let it slide.
Chief, are you adding headcount, or are you just replacing positions?
I'm sorry.
Are you adding headcount? You said you're gonna hire some new cadets.
So yes, we have to add headcount.
Excuse me, can I, before we get into that, because that's budget, I'd like to let capital outlay deal with the capital.
Yeah, but there's a capital line item for equipment for new hires. I think that's where his question was coming from.
No,
Yep.
my question was pertaining to the vehicle that goes along with the headcount increase.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just
So-
didn't want to, I didn't want to take away from capital outlay.
So if you add a headcount, then you're gonna add a vehicle, I would imagine, right?
So at this moment, we don't need to, but once we get past this, we may at some point. Not this year. I mean, probably not next year, but we will eventually.
Any questions?
Yes, so with regards to the vehicle plan, what triggers a vehicle going onto the replacement list? Is it mileage? Is it state of constant repairs? What kind of is your decision-making process?
So the plan itself is designed for 7 years or 155,000 miles. We've not, on patrol cars, we've not reached that 155,000 miles, but we have been able to get past the 7 to almost 10 years. We still have one 2011 Crown Vic that's out there we're using just for details right now. But that's the plan. The plan is designed for 7 years and 155,000 miles, and we've gone many times well past the 7 years.
Thank you.
So we're not gonna vote tonight on this, because we're gonna vote capital, all together after we meet with everyone. That's just because we're voting on a total capital amount. Just so you know.
Sure.
That we wouldn't
Yep.
vote tonight, but we will let you know what we do end up voting on, which will be over the next few weeks.
Certainly.
But we appreciate this very much, because we have a tough road on capital.
We understand. We're always willing, as I think all your departments are willing to work with you to make it work. We recognize that my job is to ask you for what I need. Your job is to tell me what we can afford. And that can be a tough decision sometimes, but that's the way it works. So. But I would be remiss if I didn't ask you for what I need, because you wouldn't know.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you, Chief.
So just one other thing, so we are working on the bylaw for capital, which I'm wondering if it's gonna take your new hire $10,000 and move a portion of that over to the expenses. I just wanna make sure I put that out there.
Right, you
because-
did. You mentioned that on Saturday as well,
Yeah.
because there are some parts of this is the equipment, and there's some parts that are the medical expenses and stuff that we go along with getting the recruit into the academy.
Do you have any idea of the breakdown of that?
So the expenses that we would to cover that would is probably about 2,000. The equipment would probably be about 8,000 of that.
Okay, thank you.
You will, but don't quote me because I don't have the numbers in front of me. But it's about
I'm
that.
just wondering what the
Sure.
breakdown is.
So you're gonna vote the capital budget as a grand total?
Yeah, when we have everything all together.
I got it. Okay.
Yeah, 'cause it's too hard, we had this from last year, to vote each one individually. It just made more sense at the end to vote on everything, because then we knew how much we had.
There's
So you'll
many
come up
moving
with-
pieces, and we know there's a
Yeah.
shortage, but we don't know.
Right,
what
so
it
you
is.
come up with a total and what capital approves for each department, and then you vote it as a block.
Exactly,
So you have to do the
Yeah.
triage once you know what everything is.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep, that's fine.
Try one more question, Chief, on the
Sure.
record management system. That was kind of a placeholder, I guess, on the capital list.
Yes.
I think you also had that on the ARPA list, but what was the timing on that with regards to when, I think you were saying the maintenance contracts are running out or something like that? What's the?
So the timing on that, Mr. Carter, should be probably within the next 3 to 5 years that we're going to have to do it. IMC, or the system we're currently using, they're supporting, but they're not making any changes to. And they're talking about within the next year or two giving a 3-year deadline that it'll be over. So I would say within 3 to 5 years, you're going to be looking to do something with that, with the records management system.
And that was on the 245 number or something like that, or is it?
That was about 260, but there was a bigger number on the operating side, so we're gonna try to work that through. They've got we've gone back to them to get a different quote with a higher upfront cost, but maybe a lower operating cost. So we're looking at that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So if there's no other, this is the only item on the agenda tonight for capital. If you want, we could adjourn. It's up to you guys. We need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to capital outlay. I make a motion to.
Okay. Anyone
Sorry.
second?
Second?
Okay. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Okay.
I'll hang
So
around
we're gonna,
if you don't mind, I'll hang around.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. You
Stay.
can absolutely stay. I
I'll
just-
even let you talk now, even though you've adjourned.
Thank you.
Okay. So capital will adjourn at 7:58. Thank you, guys.
All right, so now we can get into the budget. I'll just let you start off, Chief.
So the budget is, includes all of our contractual raises for our current police officers, that are, both the dispatch union and the police union have contracts. Myself and the deputy chief have a contract, and then we have two, people that are on the, wage and personnel. So those increases are figured in this budget. But what we haven't talked about, what we talked about on Saturday, was the increases to the personnel. We are looking at an issue coming up in 2025 with a bunch of retirements, potentially 5 people retiring within the next few years. We've talked about this for many years, and we've kicked the can a few times, but we're at a place where we can't do that any further. So I can't cut any personnel requests from you, because if we do, we're going to have a bigger problem in 2025. So this budget increases by 2 police officers and 1 dispatcher. So the 2 police officers are designed to get us up to 19 people, which will give us a larger number so that when those 5 people leave, we're not in such a tight spot. When I took over in 2013, we were at 13 police officers, and that is the bare minimum to run the police department, putting people on the road. But that's not any of the other positions that we have, detectives, the admin sergeants working on accreditation, anything at all. That's bare bones. If we get back to that, or we get back to 11, like we could potentially happen in 2025, there is no way you can operate this police department 24/7 with that number of people without forcing people in all the time and creating bigger problems than we can fix with money. Because when people force in all the time, they get tired. They make decisions that are based when they're tired, and it's just not a good idea. It increases our liability, and it decreases our ability to go out there and perform the job. So we have to start. We have to hire people. We've got one in the academy right now that was part of last year's budget, and he will be completing the academy by June, and then does some field training and get on the road. We're looking for a second person this time, but we're having a difficult time finding people. We're still in civil service. We voted last April to come out, but the legislature didn't follow through on that. So we're still following the civil service process. We called that list. We got through 11 people, 2 people signed. Of those 2 people, 1 person passed all the tests, the medical exam, the physical abilities test, and is in the academy. So now we're looking again. That process is a long, drawn-out process. We started back in August, and we have 1 person in the academy in February. We're working on trying to get somebody maybe in the academy in May, but the process is going to take us 9 months to a year to get that body on the road. And if we keep waiting, we will cause the problem that in 2025, when everybody retires, you're going to have to hire so many people to fill those spots. Because of the world we live in today, civil service has changed the way we take lateral transfers. I came here as a lateral transfer from New Bedford, fully trained and ready to go. We're not able to do that right now because other departments are having a difficult time hiring people as well, and they're not letting people go. And if they are letting them go, they're not the ones you want. So we can't focus on that. We have to send people to the academy, we have to get them trained, and it takes a long time, and we cannot wait any longer to do that. So that's why we've got the 2 officers in there. We're hoping to get another one hired and probably get somebody into the academy in May, and that will get us moving forward. But if we wait, we will be at such a low number that there will be no detectives, there will be no person working on accreditation, there will be only people working on patrol, and they will be working numerous shifts. Many police departments are facing this issue right now. You see that the world we live in is not as friendly to police officers as it once was, and many people are not choosing to come into this profession because of what it is. Many people are choosing to leave this profession because of what it is. We've worked with our union to work on a good contract that we can use to attract people to come to Carver, which is what we need to do to get good quality police officers, but it's still difficult to find people. So I think that wherever we have to cut, it cannot be from these positions, because we have to get to a number that will leave you in a position to be able to continue to run the police department in 2025. So that's my spiel on police officers.
Chief, if we were out of civil service, would it be easier to find people? Is civil service part of the problem? And
So yes, it is, because civil service gives us a list of people that took the test, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a test. They take the test. We get a list of names, but they're very restrictive on how you can hire outside of that list. It used to be that we could take lateral transfers, which was a fully trained police officer, put them on the road, give them some field training here, and get them working. But you can't do that right now because civil service changed the rules to say both towns have to agree to let that happen.
if we were out of civil service, would you be subject to that restriction?
So if we were out of civil service, we know of people that work in other departments in this area that are in civil service, that if we were out of it, they could quit there tomorrow and come work for us the next day and we'd be done. So that's coming out of civil service. What it's going to do for us in the next few years is give us a pool of candidates that's much larger than what we have right now.
And I'm sorry, and why is it that even though the town voted us out of civil service, that
The
was still,
legislature wouldn't take it up.
the state legislature has to take it up for our town in particular?
So we when we entered civil service in 1968, it was by a ballot vote on the ballot. When we came out last year, or we voted to come out last year, was at town meeting, because we came out not the way we went in. We came in by a ballot vote, but we left by a vote of town meeting. That vote had to go up to this legislature and be approved as a home rule petition. Several other departments, somewhere between 20 and 40 within the state, also did that in last year. And the legislature decided to take no action because of so many departments to say, we're out. We can't operate under these rules anymore. We're going to step out. They didn't take any action, so none of those departments left. We've asked to the town administrator to put a ballot question on the ballot vote in April, taking us out of civil service. We hope to have an informational night ahead of time to talk to residents who want to hear about it, and so that they can vote at the ballot. And if we vote in April on the ballot to come out of civil service, it's legal counsel's opinion that we're out. We don't have to go through the process of going
Go out the way we
to
came.
legislation. So because we're leaving the way we went in, we're out. That's a big if. It's hard to bank on, but we're hoping that residents will recognize why. Our police union, Bill Kelly's here tonight, the union president. Our police union, this was negotiated with them. They were on board with it. We've worked through the collective bargaining agreement to give them, I would believe, better, but at least as good protections as civil service provides for them, because this is a tough job, and as a police officer, it's not a job where you can come to work without having some protections from just merely losing your job. So we've got the just cause provision in their contract, that the same as they would have for civil service. We've worked with them to create a better promotional process within their contract than civil service provides, and we're working to come up with a better hiring process than civil service currently provides. But again, the big thing that happens is, by coming out, we can attract police officers from other departments that can come here without us having to expend 6 months of the academy and 3 months of field training that we're paying the person to train and learn to become a police officer. We can get away from that, which is probably about a $65,000 savings per officer. So.
Obviously, we want to be hopeful that it would work at the ballot, but could we also at the same time be asking our state rep to try to push this along through the legislature, that they might take it up?
They have no interest in taking it up.
We certainly are going to ask that to happen, but the person that's running the committee is not interested in bringing it for a vote, and because that's happening.
This is just a lobbying issue?
Yes, a lobbying issue. And
So if I may too, what was passed at town meeting last year is now dead. So the new legislature started, and all the petitions that went
So
in
it's done.
are gone. So it's not sitting in some office
Okay,
waiting
so
for a
it
hearing.
can't be revived without, we'd have to do
without-
it again at town meeting to go that route,
And
yeah.
and it's useless to do that because they're not moving any of them.
Yep.
Our best bet is to try to get it on the ballot and have it pass the election.
And we're fortunate that it came in by ballot, and we have that opportunity to take it out by.
So, all right, so you have to do some good publicity to make sure that
Yes.
it's understood the entire department is on the same page on this.
yes, we do.
I think from what I've gotten from Mark, if I may, Chief, we've had conversations over the last couple of months, and they're facing several mandates that like everything else Massachusetts does, they're unfunded mandates. The police reform bill tied their hands with special police officers. They want body cameras. These things is what they demand, and then there's no money for them. They say you will have, and how you pay for them is, well, that's not our problem. So this is one of the few departments that really get hit with the unfunded mandates, especially in today's climate. I just read a recent poll that they polled police officers from across the country, and sadly, 7% of the police officers that they polled would recommend somebody go into that job. And when you think about that, and 83% of those that would not recommend the job cited the fact that they got no respect, that they don't have any more respect. People look at the police as the enemy right up until, of course, they need to save you. And that's the nationwide.
I mean.
Bob Fennessy's got a daughter. Tell us the story. You told me today. Don't tell me it's not true.
So since she was in high
I would
school,
say if
yeah.
you look at everyone in here, it's not true.
No, it's not true. This is Carver. But go ahead, Bob.
Just real quick. So since she was in high school, she wanted to be a police officer. So she worked her way up, got her degree. She went and she took the test in Boston to be a Boston police officer, and she became a Boston police officer. Has been on for a little over 4 years now. And for the first time, she said, Dad, I'm thinking of switching and going to the fire academy because of the way police officers are treated in this country right now, and in Boston and everywhere else. And I have another daughter who's a firefighter in Boston. She graduated in December and got on, and there were 20 police officers who took the firefighting academy. And it was always the other way around, but now it's shifted, and they're going to the fire services. So, because they're respected more at this.
It's not, and I don't make that statement towards Carver by any means, because I think that we're very fortunate to have the force that we have. We have an exemplary police department. I've said this hundreds of times, we're very lucky to the point that we don't really realize sometimes how lucky we are in this town. We have a great police department, a great fire department, a great O&M. We have a lot of incredibly dedicated employees and a lot of volunteers. But that's not the case nationwide. And things are changing. And this state is they're coming down with more unfunded mandates. So we sat down today and said, what can we do with your budget? And well, we need this, and this is a mandate, and that's a mandate, and so it's a big budget. I think that from what I can gather out of it, it's pretty much bare bones. People in this room that have been on this committee, Beth, you know it as well as I do.
Yep.
We've been hearing from the chief for the last 4 years that there's retirements coming up in 25. But when we first heard the story, it was, that's 5 years from now, don't worry about it. Well, now suddenly we're talking about FY 24's budget. And before we know it, we're gonna be talking about FY 25's budget. And then what happens when we find out that there are 6 officers that are retiring, and what do we do tomorrow? Because that's exactly how it's going to hit us. It's going to be, okay, time's up. Clock ran out. What do we do tomorrow? And everybody's going to be, wow. But we've known about this for years. And we have done little to make the changes that were necessary. We actually had, I think you said, 2 officers, but one got hurt in training. So now we're down to only 1 in the academy.
2 were signed the list, they would take the job, but only 1 made it through all the process, the other one got hurt along the way. So if I can just add, I don't want to sit up here and tell you that the world's ending. We do enjoy a great deal of public support in this community for our police officers, and it's fantastic. It really is. And so I don't want you to think that I'm speaking about the people of Carver, but right now hiring police officers across the country is very difficult, and the people we're hiring don't know it's a great place to work here. We're working on telling them that, but they don't know that. So it is a little difficult. We do have to work on it. One of the other reasons we have to start ahead of time is if we wait till 5 retire, being a small police department, we really don't have the ability to bring 5 in at one time, because a big part of bringing a new police officer on, especially one who's just graduated the academy, is field training. And you need people who have experience to train them. And if we have 5 at the same time, we just don't have the ability to absorb and get those people up to speed. 2 really is the max. So we're trying to work with that as well and make sure that we get a little ahead so that when we're cut back with these retirements, the problem won't be as bad. If you look at our strategic plan from 2018, we had in that plan, we agreed that at 15 or 16,000 calls, we'd be at 22 police officers. Well, I can tell you we're at 17 and we're at 16,000 calls. We're not even close to 22. We're not going to get to 22, and that's what it is. But we do have to keep striving for that, because if we want to maintain the level of service in the community as we have it, we need those officers. So that's the 2 police officers. There's also 1 dispatcher added in because we've, over the past, since Artie Parker was here and before, we've struggled to fill the dispatch positions and keep those chairs filled. And those chairs are just as important as the police cars, because those chairs are the people who, when you call 911 for a problem, that's who's answering the phone and getting you the help you need. We've tried different scenarios with 3 full-timers and a bunch of part-timers and 4 full-timers and some per diem people, and none of that's worked. So we've worked with the Public Safety Dispatch Committee, of which myself and Mr. Fennessy are members, and the fire chief, the EMS chief, and Mr. Walsh. And we've come up with an idea. We're trying this idea of taking the per diem numbers and making it a full-time position. That really doesn't increase a lot, but there is an increase in that budget as well to bring that body on, because we need to fill those chairs with people. Because if they're not here, then we don't get dispatched because your calls don't get answered. So those are important. I don't see how we cut any of those bodies. Again, I want to work with the town and give you something back. I don't see how we can take anything out of those. We did, for the first time ever, through Mr. Fennessy's work, give you a much more realistic overtime budget. That budget has not increased in forever, and over the years, the police officer's regular salary has gone up, and when your salary goes up, your overtime rate goes up. So we're getting less hours out of the same amount of money over the years. So we looked at it from what we're actually spending, and we came up with a number. The number that's in there right now is high, is 320. But I feel that number is like the snowplow budget. We're not sure. It's what we've spent in the past, but if we need to cut from, I'd cut from there, cut that down to 290 or so, and see where we get. We still may need to come back and say we need the money, because police overtime is like snowplow overtime. We can't say, well, it's snowing and there's not enough money to plow the roads. Things happen in the year that we have to attend. We have to go to court. Major crimes happen, and we have to bring people in to work on them. People get sick, people take their vacation time. There's a whole bunch of reasons why we have to use police overtime to cover the staffing that we have. And part of that is because we're at such a minimum that each shift is at a minimum, and when somebody takes a day off, we have to fill that with overtime. So we're hoping these other hires may help us to quell that number, but I'm not willing to tell you right now that next year we're gonna use a lot less, because those officers, if we're lucky, will be coming out in the fall. So I would shave that number back a little bit from the 320 to probably about 290. That would give you some savings. I'd also shave back the number on the dispatch overtime from 62 to 52. That'll save you a little bit more. Again, I can't guarantee you we're not going to need that money, but if it's going to help us balance the budget for now, and we'll have to deal with that next spring if we have to go over. I can tell you that again, as I said before, I take expending the taxpayers' money very seriously. We have no overtime that goes out there just because people want to get a gift of overtime. It's all used for legitimate purposes, and we have a good breakout. It was in the packet that I gave you before that shows what we spend our overtime on. A lot of it is to replace people when they take time off, but a great deal of it is for the school security program that we run. A great deal is it for training, and as Mr. Jermaine mentioned, police reform has some unintended effects, I guess, on budgets, in that they've asked for a lot. Society wants a change. We want accountability. We want de-escalation. We want better trained officers. Well, all of that's great, but none of it comes without a price. And we are starting this year our body camera program, so each officer will be wearing a body camera over the next couple of weeks. Those body cameras are in this budget. They're under the new line, I forget what it's called, but for technology, and we have a program there where we get the body cameras come at a cost of $12,500 a year. That covers the cameras, replacement of the cameras, replacement of the batteries, storage of the data in the cloud for free, and redaction software. But that's something that comes out of police reform that society wants, that we've got to pay for. Accreditation. Police reform wants all police departments to be accredited. There's a cost to that. There's a cost to the software to maintain that program. There's a cost to being in the program itself. And we had to create an additional sergeant position to work through that. That's a person who's not on the road anymore, but is working on making sure all of our policies and procedures are up to snuff and up to the current standards, which is a good thing. It's not a bad thing, but it costs money, and we have to spend money to do these things. So the training line is not the $10,000 into training line is not really the big expense. It's overtime. When we take people off the road to send them to training, we have to backfill their positions, or we have to pay them overtime to go because, again, the numbers of the department are low enough that we don't have a lot of extra. So we do have to spend that money. It's the cost of running a police department in 2023. It's going to continue to increase, and it's going to be more difficult as we move forward towards 2025 with these retirements and figuring out how we're going to staff the road and do all the other things that we have to do, like accreditation and the body cameras and all the rest of the things.
Chief, we talked for years, is it the FBI that sort of has a number of, like, for a town our size, how many police officers we should have to meet a standard?
Yes.
And do you know off the top of your head what that number was?
So for the Southeast Mass region, the number we have, and it's in that strategic plan that we did in 2018, is 1.9 per 1,000, and we're not there. We're not going to get close to there before I leave.
22.
But when we went through that plan, also we used that number, but we also went back and looked at what is the acceptable level of police service the town of Carver wants, right? So we looked at the population, we looked at the number of calls we handle per year to provide service, and those calls per year are everything from domestics to car accidents to investigations to records requests, everything the police department does. So we figured from that number, it came out with an acceptable level for the town of Carver would be between 720 and 740 per police officer, calls per year. We had there's a chart in there that shows when you get to about 15,500, we should be at 22 police officers. The past 3 years, we've averaged 16,000 calls per year, and we're at 17. So we're already not even coming close to that. And if we continue to kick the can, we'll go
Exactly, because we were talking about trying to get to that 22 before we had
a long time ago.
the retirement crisis facing us.
A long time ago.
Right. So we're not going to achieve that in the next couple of years. There's just no way, but we need to do everything we can to bolster that number so that when it's affected by those retirements, we can continue to operate the department.
And even more so if some of the new development that's proposed in this town happens between the North Carver area and whatever happens down in South Carver. I mean, this is going to be a big impact. As you know, we're going to go up over 12,000 as soon as either one of these developments get built. And you know, that's going to cause...
Well, that's why we talked about it years ago. And
well, we knew this was going to be triggered a long time ago, and we continue to kick the can. And, you know, now it's starting that we're going to start stubbing our toe on the can that's stuck in the grate, you know. It's how much more can you kick it? I do have one other question. Yeah, I'm looking at, looks like weapons, gear, and ammo at 25,922, and then there's another item for just ammo. Is
so that
an overlap, or?
No, that shouldn't be that 25,922. That's that is on capital 10-year plan for a couple of years out, replacement of the weapons, but it shouldn't be in there this year. The 25, yeah, so the 25,922, right?
Yeah, 25,922. So that's not in this.
Nope, you can cross that off.
is that a number that we were including in the budget?
Well, that's what my question is. Is that a number that's included in the budget?
It is, if it's.
Well, it's here.
If it's in that line, it would be in the 3,123,058, right?
Capital. Remember, we bought guns back in 2014. She put it in that line. That's the replacement of guns, but that's a couple of years out. That's
What page is that
That's the
on?
annual town meeting.
15?
That's so not. That's under capital, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it's in.
Yeah, that's from an town meeting article.
Oh, it's not.
But there's no.
Yeah,
there's,
it's not.
but
Not
there's
in
no.
the budget.
There's no money under this.
It's not in
So
that
it's not in
budget?
the budget, okay.
No.
Not in my operating budget. That would be under capital, and that's not on for next year.
Prior years.
So why is it even carried on this sheet?
We had put in. Sue was reminding me. We probably had put it in there for the tasers, but the tasers are now under this other purchase services for 13.6.
Yeah, but they wouldn't, the tasers didn't amount to 25,922 anyway.
Right.
So can that entire number,
Yeah, it's not in, it's not included in the
well, I
number.
appreciate, but it is in the overall budget. It's still in an
No,
entry
I'm
line that
saying
will
it's not.
carry to the bottom line of the budget.
Right.
I
Am I
thought
wrong?
Bob said it's
from
not.
2014.
Well, how can it be in here and it's not in the total at the bottom line?
I don't know, I just thought I'd heard.
So
that's
that's
what Bob
only in
said.
the, what are you looking at, the year-to-date that I gave you?
No, he's talking about the budget.
I'm talking about the budget sheet
Annual
that
town meeting
you
article
handed
seven.
us. Not today's.
The one that we used the Saturday we had.
The one that we've been using right along. There's 25,922. It says annual town meeting, Article 7, and it says weapons, gear, and ammo.
In 2014.
And I imagine that $22,000 or
I don't think
$25,000 is going to be in the bottom total.
I don't think it does.
This budget report looks like it has articles and
Yeah.
operating expenses
Yes.
in it.
Both.
So-
They'll be separate,
Which ones are in the total for the budget then?
starting from salaries,
Yeah.
looks like going down.
Yes.
Well, it's not in the police budget, but is it in the grand total?
That's what I'm wondering.
Oh, okay.
Is it in, I'm not saying it's in his $3 million budget. I'm saying is it in the town-wide
Is it in the
grand total at the
27,500?
I
bottom?
guess there's no but shelter.
Well, if all the capital articles are in here, then that'd
Be a
be a
huge
lot of
number.
money that would be.
Yeah.
Well, it would be. I mean, am I wrong? Am I reading this wrong?
So that 25,922, that was for the tasers and the cameras together, that was being moved into the budget. But now it's not gonna be in the budget. So that can be removed. That is in the calculation. So we'll reduce this by 25,922.
So you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Just kidding. We have to laugh a little bit.
All right, so for the police budget then, the
The
25,922 could come out. And are you comfortable, chief, recommending the drop of 30,000 in overtime?
It's only gonna come back to us and ask for
Well, if
a
necessary.
reserve fund.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. If that'll help to make the number better, we'll.
You know, it's gonna give
Probably
us
done
a
in years.
feel-good moment.
every
Well,
other
it
year.
depends whether it all depends, basically.
So
It's like, it's like you said, it's like the snowplow.
The question
This year, look at the snowplow expenses. We haven't had any snow yet.
Right, and I can't fully answer the question because I don't know really what the impact is when we get these two new officers on the road, how that's gonna help us. And we're also down an SRO who's been deployed, so we're missing him for next year too. So there's gonna be some unknowns for next year that we're gonna have to get through, that none of us can predict. The school is very helpful with the school security program, and they're kicking quite a bit of it this year, but they're not sure what they can cover next year either. So it's hard to give you an answer on that. I put it in there because I think it's what we needed, but I think we'll be safe at 290, and if we need to come back, we'll come back and ask for more.
And my goal in doing that was to, if you look back, it's been underfunded every year.
Yeah, I agree.
And we go to the end of the year, pulling money here from there, from other departments.
I agree.
And so my goal was to bring it up incrementally to a point where it's self-sufficient. And
We're
that
getting-
320 probably would do that, but the 290 probably won't. But again, I appreciate that he's making the decision to offer that, to reduce it, to
Well-
help the overall budget situation.
Since we don't need that 25,922, should we leave in some of the overtime?
Well, the 25,922, I don't think is part of the police budget.
It is, I just added
You
it.
just
Then
said
the,
it's
Yeah.
then the department
Total.
in the
requested.
department.
In theory, it
request.
shouldn't be because it's an article.
Right, they're gonna have to remove it, so that would reduce it by the 25,922. And you say 10,000 in dispatch as well? 10
But you have
dispatch
another-
overtime?
Right, we're hopeful by adding in the fifth dispatcher, we're gonna affect that, but again, we won't know until we get them up and running.
Can I
So-
just,
Okay,
can I ask one
go ahead.
question? I'm so
Go-
sorry.
Sure.
I'm
So
so
what are you
stuck.
sorry for?
I don't know. I'm stuck on the 25,922. Should that be in the budget for 24? It's not on the balance sheet somewhere?
Where does it come from? Where we make it up in the operating budget, is that what you're asking?
Well, no, because the way I'm reading this is we voted on it in 2014, so I would have thought we already reserved that money back in 2014.
And it shouldn't even be on this piece of paper.
I've never seen articles in an
Yeah.
operating budget.
Yeah, I don't get this. We
Like, we
got
don't
town meeting
reserve-
Article 3, we got town meeting Article 4. These are 23 revised budgets. 23 revised budget for Article 3 is $45,310 for radios. Town meeting Article 4 is replacing a command car, which goes to fire. This is 85,000. I mean, there's nothing department requested, but are we carrying these numbers into the totals at the bottom of the page?
That I don't know, I'd have to talk to Sue about it.
I just added the police one, and that is in there.
Yeah, great. So how far off is the budget with stuff that doesn't need to be carried to the bottom line? If we just found 25,000.
Our article's in the 950 shortfall, 900 shortfall. It shouldn't be.
Because,
So-
I mean, I would think if this was voted on 8 years ago,
It was.
we have a reserve somewhere.
This wasn't voted on 8 years ago. It was, but we spent that money. We bought new weapons in 2014, so that money was gone. Again, I don't know how that 25 is in there because that's not part of what I put in here. The 25,922 comes from, if you add up our body cameras and our tasers, that's about the same amount of money. So I'm
But it's
assuming-
also in, so it's in twice?
Yes.
Should we check that? Because it does say 2014 on there. And even when you look at the count number, it ends in 14, which I think means which year it was, voted on.
It was, and it was a lot less than. It was only 17,000 then, so
Okay.
it's definitely, we spent the money in 2014. Yeah, I can work with Sue and try to figure out where that is. I believe we may have just miscommunicated how we were putting it in there. I put it in my operating budget under 2 different categories, and I think Sue might have been just making sure we had it in there so we didn't miss it.
Well, I have to tell you, I don't see it in the regular line items. What's the?
So it's under one of them, the tasers are under other purchase services for 13.6, if you look at that line.
Okay,
And then if you go down to, there's a new line that we wanted to break out that other purchase services into something that made more sense. If you go to computer software subscriptions, under that there's 49,000.
49,000.
That's got the 12.5 for the cameras.
That's the
There's
cameras.
Technology in there.
okay.
So that's where we put them in there. I think maybe we just double that up thinking that
right.
we didn't have it in there.
So-
But it definitely shouldn't be under that article from buying the guns back in 2014. Definitely shouldn't be there.
So Bob, the 25,922 reduces the deficit.
3,123,058 by the request by 25,922.
Right.
And then the chief's willing to take 30,000 out of overtime, 10,000 out of dispatch.
Overtime, yep.
So I think I would be more comfortable with just taking 30,000 out of overtime, period. But you divvy it up between dispatch and regular overtime is however you want to do it. But I think that we're trying to grab 40 grand out of there. I think it's unrealistic. I think it's a feel-good moment, and I think we're going to wind up back here with a transfer request. It's not like we're pulling, that's a good chunk of money. And it's going to come back and bite us.
So instead of taking 40 of overtime, take only 30.
30.
Take only 30.
Yeah.
30 of overtime.
So, and you divvy it up the way you see fit. I mean, if you want to take 20 out of the police side, 10 out of dispatch, something like that, I don't have an issue with that. I think that taking anything out of it is not necessarily going to help you anyway. But we go from there.
With the 25, that
With
would
the
be a net of about
25,
55,000 overall.
We talked today about the cameras. The cameras, another unfunded mandate. We talked today about the tasers and leasing the tasers. That makes the most amount of sense because the tasers, and the chief can speak very clearly about this, but what I took out of it was the tasers, every officer has to train every year on the tasers. And those materials is like $2,000 a year to buy the cartridges, the training cartridges. Well, they're part of the lease agreement. So when the batteries go dead in the tasers, they get new batteries. When the taser breaks, they get a new taser. So that they're not trying to repair tasers, they're up to date with them.
Okay, so
And you save very little money over buying them outright. It costs a little bit more to lease them than it does to buy them outright, but you have no maintenance. So this makes perfect sense. And it was the best way to go because, you know, let the police do their job, not fix stuff that breaks. So my suggestion today, when I met with Bob and the chief, was just leave them in there as a lease item. Now that we're pulling some additional money out, I don't see why. I think we're just fine with this. We'll live with it. But I'd like to see a motion for the 3,123,058 less the 30,000 in overtime, less the 25,922.
Yeah, I did 30,000 less in overtime?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion to recommend to the select board the police department budget for $3,067,136. That's,
Second.
So the motion is made, and we'll get into the discussion if we need to. The motion is made and seconded to recommend to the select board for the inclusion in the warrant for the police budget in total of $3,067,136. Any further discussion? We'll hold a minute and see what the powwow is. Are we go with that number?
Yes.
Chief, Bob, Sue?
Here's the 49 number that I came up with, and that includes the cameras. So I'm good.
Yep.
That's a good number. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. $3,067,136 it is. Thanks, Chief, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
thank you so
See how
much.
easy that
Thank you for your
was?
time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your support and help. Thank you.
Always. Before we get into the minutes, I had said at the beginning that the town administrator and finance director updates, I put them off for the departments that were coming in. So if we could have a few minutes of that, Mr. Fennessy? Perhaps have the director come with you, or?
They're talking about something on the budget there. So this past week, well, actually it was last week, I had a meeting with all the department heads, and we went over the budget, the issues, didn't sugarcoat anything, the need to look at budgets with a fine-tooth comb and figure a place where they can find reductions in their requests. Now, requests are just that. They're just requests at the point of what they think they need or want to run their department. Occasionally, there's some cushion in there, and my goal is not to hurt a department where they can't function, but to look at that cushion and see if they can live with removing that cushion. And a number of departments already came to me with ideas and offers of helping by helping other departments by giving up something of their own that they have. So we're going through that process. I gave them till the midweek of this week to get me all the information. I see a reduction coming somewhat more dramatically than I thought it would. And every one of them said that they're willing to do that for the betterment of the town and the betterment of the other departments. And I said, well, you got to still think about your department because you got to make sure that you're comfortable, like the chief here. That he's comfortable that he can fully protect the people of Carver with what we're giving them. So we're getting to that point. We're looking at other areas too where there might be some leeway to reduce that. And I think, in the next, well, hopefully in the next week to two, we'll get there. So I'll just keep everybody up to date. You might be seeing some emails go out with certain things. I know you can't discuss this amongst yourselves. So just keep it to yourself till you come to a meeting, so nobody claims there was some kind of a collusion or something. So well, that's the goal right now. It's, and you look back at how does this happen? It happens over time, over a long period of time of different policies and different uses of funds. it just happens. So we're gonna look at it, try and get to that point where we'll have the balanced budget going into the town meeting and without major cuts, trying to preserve personnel to the best of our ability, and look at the other accounts. So, and I want to thank the schools too, especially Ron Griffin and Scott Neef, because they made dramatic cuts in their budgets, and again with the goal of preserving their personnel for the children. So, and you'll see in the capital outlay they cut their requests by more than 50%, which I thought was fantastic, because it's going to be a short money on the capital outlay as well as the budget this year. So there might be a 2-year plan, a 3-year plan to get back to, where everybody's comfortable with their requests and getting those like fully funded. So that's where we stand. It's fun to be here. Any questions or anything? Sue, do you want to add anything? No.
Ask a question.
Yes, sir.
You can ask me a question at any time. You don't have to ask me.
Do you have a defined, put the stamp right on it, revenue number?
Pardon me?
A revenue number that's not gonna move.
We have a defined revenue.
You have it.
Well, yes and no. So what we have right now is what we're going with.
Is that the
But I'm
number
looking at
we
some
had
other
last
things.
week?
All right.
Yeah, that's still on the table. And again, you may see stuff coming out that I'll get out to everybody as we move along.
Well, that number we saw last week will change from the assessor's number that came in, or that's not part of this coming budget?
Well, it could be. That's what I'm looking into. There's some uncommitted billings that were not put forward until February, till earlier this month. So we're going to see where that comes out, and that may supplement the budget that way.
So that might provide some relief if that
Yeah.
can work.
Yep.
Plus, we still haven't got anything on the bond yet for the town hall and the library. And if we do that entire project and town meeting goes for the bond for all of that project, that's another $1.3 million that we have set aside in the capital that can come back into capital. Because we'll bond everything in one whack and get it over with, including the roof, so that we don't have this come back and haunt us next year. And that would free up the 900,000, I think 900 for the library set
I
aside.
think it was 960.
And 365 or something like that is sitting in an account for the town hall siding.
Are you guys
Which-
looking at that?
You know,
It's still sitting there.
I mean, no, are you looking at?
Yeah, we're looking at those. Well,
so
we're
do we
waiting.
have any more, anything on the bonds? Nothing on those,
Here from bond council.
nothing yet?
And I met with Dave Siedentop. He wants to get an engineer in to do an evaluation of how much it would cost to do all that, so we can move forward with that figure.
As long as we don't pay
'Cause
the engineer.
He doesn't have an idea really what it's gonna cost, so.
You know?
Hmm?
I just don't want to pay the engineer $50,000.
No, he said probably somewhere around 12 to 15.
Okay.
I mean, it's gotta be done, so.
What happened to the free estimates? We get
Yeah.
free estimates.
Bob, I just have another question. Do we have a placeholder in the budget somewhere for the Old Colony road tax?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a warrant
They're look-
article.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they're looking to have, the feasibility study done.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's,
John and I went to a meeting at Old Colony a week and a half ago.
it was on Zoom.
Yeah.
That was on, and you were there too.
That's right, I was on
You were
Zoom.
a ghost and Zoom boy.
You were a ghost.
I was, you.
So-
They didn't
I-
like me because I
I
said,
think-
this shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody. Haven't we talking about building a school for the last 5 years? Why is everybody shocked? Because,
Did-
some of the people in that room were like, oh geez, I don't know if we can do this. Well, everybody else has been building their infrastructure. Did you think that Old Colony was gonna, run in perpetuity and never add on to their school and never improve the school?
And I did hear, because I went to their meeting last week, that they were looking at maybe taking a 5-year note out for that,
Yes.
so, and stretching it out over
Yeah.
5 years for each town.
Which makes it a little easier.
It's gonna make it a lot easier for
Yeah.
the towns
Yeah.
to take that. And then we have our usual, I don't know what the number is this year for the operating budget. I haven't heard yet.
I don't know yet.
Yeah, it's kind of late for us to not be in that yet, but I haven't heard that number. Usually I go to that meeting. But I think that there's a lot of easy solutions that are sitting there. I think that some of our forecasts may be a little bit off, and I'm hoping that that they come out much better. And if that's the case, fine. But, I'd rather create a budget that, based on what we have, that we can live with, and then perhaps be pleasantly surprised. If the projections are off a little bit or something like that, or if the budget needs fine tuning. But I still think that there's the best way to handle this, and I was frankly humbled and surprised that Mr. Carter agreed, was to borrow the money and get these big projects done, because we've been kicking, this is another can we've been kicking down the road forever, to the point that this building is literally disintegrating on the outside. In fact, Tom Walsh said to me the other day, he said he's gonna start wearing a hard hat when he comes in the morning, because he's afraid to walk in his door to go down to emergency services.
Well, just look at what's interesting.
He's afraid stuff's gonna fall off the building and hit him, because it is looking pretty bad. So, and obviously that can't be good for the underlayment and the underside structure, so it's just a matter of time before, we start hearing we have to start replacing sill plates and everything else, which is outrageously expensive. I don't think we're saving any money and not getting this done. That's my take. Anybody else?
Just one more question. So on that police department budget, where we saw that old warrant article, was that just we keyed it to the wrong place, or should old warrant articles be in here?
So I was glancing through while you guys were talking, and it looks like all the other ones were zeroed out.
Okay,
So it might have just been an error in putting it down.
Yeah.
We just check that, make sure?
Yep. So,
Anyone, anything else?
you want to add?
So in that old warrant article, it was just a placeholder because I wasn't sure if the chief had put in his cameras and his tasers in his budget. So I wanted to just delineate the fact that if he didn't, then I was trying to budget for that. He
Okay,
just told me that he did budget for it below the line, so that's why you guys voted to take it out.
okay.
It was-
I have one more question. Last year, we moved all the insurances and the Plymouth County retirement for both the school and the town above the line. And this year, that combined number is around $8 million. It's obvious that, well, maybe not so obvious, but I believe the vast majority of that money, or the majority of those funds, are school generated. And the increases, without knowing whether they're school generated or town generated, since they're above the line, then this comes off the top, and the school still gets their 67.5%, and we still get our 32.5%. And I'm wondering if that, putting it above the line, I'm wondering if that was the best way to go.
Well, they were getting 70% prior to that, so we did reduce it by 3%.
But what happens
and
if it should be reduced by another 2%?
But maybe that wasn't the way to go. There was no guidance last year.
No, I get it.
So I just did and worked with Ron to the best of our ability to provide a document that was presentable. So if you guys want to bring it back, bring it back. It's not my decision, it's not my budget, but we didn't have anybody to guide us last year.
No, I understand. I guess my question would come down to, between you and Ron, if we could try to get a breakout of what the two numbers are. The school must obviously know what their health insurance costs are, and they must know what their Plymouth County retirement numbers are, because it's based on payroll, just like the town should know.
Right, but bottom line, it's a bill we have to pay, so why
Yes.
wouldn't it be above the line? And then whatever's left over is what the split is, and we come up with maybe a different split. The policy says
Fine.
70, 30, and we went to 67.33, so
But maybe it
maybe,
should be 66. Maybe it should be 65.
right, but that's something that, I'm not the policymaker.
No, I get
Which is,
that.
I was in a
I don't have
position
problem
last
keeping
year.
it above the line, provided that the breakup between the two departments becomes equitable and fair. In other words, I don't want to see the school get, let's just crazy numbers, say a 10% increase on their health care, and they're still getting their 67%, and we're eating the 10% off the top of the line. Pat?
The breakout for that would be done when the schools do what's called their end of the year report.
Right,
So you'd get an exact breakout of what the health insurance costs would be, what the Plymouth County Retirement,
Medicare.
Medicare, FICA, whatever, that all comes out at the end of the year report. And that's something that I'm sure you and Ron would look at very closely, because that's what's reported as to the expenditures for schools. That's reported to the state is much more, now that those line items have gone above the line. What's reported is actually the cost of operating the schools is far greater than what their budget is. And that comes out very accurately into what's called the end of the year report.
Which is also part of your joint O&M and your joint IT, and like all that stuff that was joined together as group budgets.
Yeah.
It's not showing on their side until they do the end of the year report.
Workers' comp and all this
Exactly.
other stuff, yeah.
So as I had suggested for the last year or so, is that of this committee, there should be a subcommittee, so when we come here to discuss these things, we, or a few of us, have already talked about what is on that sheet and what should be there and what shouldn't be there and what we should be presenting to the boards. But you can't have Ron and I, and Bob being new, trying to present something without guidance from the people who have history. And if you look at the report that I gave Bob today with the past 5 years, your third and your third and your third have not been there. It's different every year, and if Bob provides that for you, you can see it. There was only 1 year that you put money aside for the middle high school reconstruction, and it was the year between Meg and myself, and you had an interim, and it was there on the warrant, but it never got put into the actual
right.
stabilization fund. So it's a matter of all of us coming together rather than all of us falling apart.
Yeah, and one of the things on that one-third issue, we were on, was that Friday? We were looking back at every town meeting
3 hours.
minutes for a couple hours, maybe 3 hours, I don't
Yeah, 3
know
hours.
how long, to try and find where that came from. And the only article we could find that was passed was an article that would fund 1/3 of the solar money that would go to to build, a fund
Middle high school
for the middle high school to build.
So Article 7 from 2019 was the only article that was ever passed at town meeting that dictated where the pilot money went.
But there's never any from OPEB or.
No,
or-
I think that became a
Stabilization.
policy.
Yeah.
And I don't think
And
it was
that's-
ever,
So there is something in the financial policies, and the financial policies qualifies by saying it's guidance for people, for not to really bind other committees or other administrators or something. To look at that, it does have in that financial policy, the goal is to put 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. But that's never happened since
was-
the
and that
inception of
never passed.
solar pilots. No funds have been funded in any of those 3 categories, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
And are we
just make sure
putting-
I'm not talking
Are we
out of
putting
school.
the pilot program, like revenue into the levy?
So it's, yeah.
But should we be putting that into the levy?
No.
There's a payment in lieu
Well, I
of
mean,
taxes
it's
get
been,
put
and
down.
that may be why
I don't-
one of these issues come up. you know, when you have this issue of
Can't go in the levy
funding,
because
because they've been
sunset.
using that money all along to fund the budgets. So like Ron said, I think last week, you know, to now say, oh, we're gonna use that now and take that out, we'll have $1.5 million issue to deal with, close to 2 million. So it's one of those things you gotta weigh out. And again, maybe that's something over a period of 2 or 3 years that you start weaning into that process.
What about the amount for the high school? Are we putting that away because we voted on
That's
that?
never been put away either.
Yeah, but it has to this year because now we've been made aware of it.
We know about it.
It's a town
Yeah.
meeting vote.
Yeah.
So we can't ignore it.
Mm-hmm.
It should have been done before. The fact that it wasn't. This board can only do the job of the paperwork we're given.
Same as me.
Regardless of what administration gives it to us. So if something is not on a report or not in a budget, then the Finance Committee is not here on a day-to-day basis. We're not paying the bills. We take what is given to us and we try to make heads or tails out of it. We're given month-end receipts. We're not given, I had to get a trial balance to find the Conservation Land Acquisition Trust Fund. Because we aren't given trial balances unless we're asked for it.
Mhm.
So, unless we ask for it. So, we operated on the basis that we were getting the information that we needed. I'm not saying from either one of you, so don't misunderstand that. But we weren't getting the information we needed. I go on the assumption, just like in 2016, an article was passed at town meeting to offer a stipend to the FinCom members, and to this day, the bylaw still says that we shall all serve without pay. So,
But now you know.
2019, Article 7 said, and that's all we could find, we went all the way back to 2014. And it said that 1/3 of the money from a solar pilot agreement would go in the middle high school building fund. So, and there is no other article stating where the other 2/3 go, but I know for a fact, because we had conversations with it many times, that you could not, Steve Pratt was in on that too, you could not put one-time monies, and even though it's a 20 or a 25-year contract, it's considered one-time
Some are
money.
30, yeah.
It's not, it can't go in the levy. Because it'll never come out of the levy, then we'll get stuck footing the bill for it.
Well, again, I think that's where we're at. Yeah, yeah. And those pilots get renewed too. It's not like they end at 20 years or 25 years. If they're sitting there with solar, I mean, I have solar on my house that's, 12 years old now. And it's not gonna end at the 20 years when I start paying.
We just renewed 4 of them this year.
So, maybe it's time for a little more digging down and getting some deep cleaning is to find out where the accounts are, what the accounts were, what was meant by the way the accounts were set up. Look at all of the plans that were done in 2017, 18, 19, and look at where we're at right now and see where the differences are, if there are any, and what accounts are still there and what accounts aren't still there. I know Sue went crazy last year because we were finding money in stray accounts that should have been swept, that never got swept. Gratefully, they didn't get swept because we needed the money. So we were able to take the money out of some of those accounts, to take care of the shortfall last year. But unless it's a fund account, these accounts that are operating accounts should be zeroed at the end of the fiscal year. And there was money hanging around all over the place last year, and which was good, again, because we needed $400,000. And we were able to go find where it was or take it from some of these accounts and move money around in order to not, because we didn't have it in the reserve fund, we didn't have a fall town meeting, but we still were able to make everything work. I think there was, I don't know, was it one of the health accounts that hadn't been touched since 2016 or something like that, had a bunch of money in it that should have, and it had nothing encumbered against it. It had never been touched from the day it was established, so it wasn't set aside for anything. It was, they were unexpected rate increases or something like that that never happened, and it never got zero.
I can just tell you that the select board's conversations relative to the pilots were to treat it as one-time money, which is why we came up with the 3 different buckets to put it
Correct.
into for the entire time that we received the pilots, because we didn't want them to be going into the levy. Specifically, that was the discussion.
That's right. And I remember all of that. I remember all of that argument, and the only thing we could find was one article from 2019, Article 7, that dictated that it go into a middle high school building fund. Nothing else about OPEB. Now, maybe that was Michael's idea. Let's put in OPEB, let's put money in the capital and debt stabilization fund, which is still a great idea. It wouldn't have mattered whether you put it into the rainy day fund. It didn't matter.
Yeah,
As long as
my
it wasn't
recollection
in the
is that was the select board policy was to do it in the 3 different buckets, and that's what we voted every year. I don't know how it came about that one of them slipped into a town meeting article, what the motivation was
What I
behind
read,
it.
that's
but-
what I-
No,
Bob and I
I'm
both
just
read
telling
it.
you, I don't know how that came about.
It's a lot of stuff that the gremlins in this building put forth, I guess. I don't know.
Do we know?
Sure.
Just going back to the insurance being above the line versus below the line. A lot of towns do that. It's actually common practice to do that, because similar to Ron's comment about the COA having a budget that funds its operations, the school needs to have a budget that funds its operations, and insurance oftentimes is a wildly variable cost that has nothing to do with the number of students that need to be educated, has nothing to do with the number of buildings that need to be operated and maintained. And so there were times when that number moved and the schools were having to look at cutting teaching positions and reducing class sizes, or increasing class sizes, because we couldn't have enough teachers because we had to fund this insurance number. And so it's very common for most towns to hold that above the line so that they can maintain their school's core operating budget.
I don't disagree with that at all.
I just wanted to make that point.
No,
'cause
I
felt it was
understand
important.
exactly what you're saying. I also
And it's
understand-
challenging for towns, absolutely, because we are one town.
It's challenging for a town because it's still $24 million out of
Yeah.
it's a lot of money every year. It's
And
a
from
lot of money.
and from the stance of the world, a lot of, with the pandemic, a lot of unnecessary or like medically optional procedures weren't being done that are now back on the uptick. So that's going to drive those costs up for any employee, not just school versus town, but any employee. The medical, you're going to see that increase just because more people are going out and getting that surgery that wasn't, didn't have to be done, but like they wanted, that kind of stuff.
I understand.
Yeah, and I don't know on the internal mechanisms of how we were doing it, but I know that in conversations when Michael Malinowski was here, perhaps he didn't put it above the line, but he was treating it as if it was above the line, because at one point, it was a 72-68 split, with the schools getting 72%. And that has been reduced, and part of that was to reflect the fact that they no longer have to
Right.
pay for their own health
And at the
insurance.
very end of it all, it was a 69.96% because he was so happy it got under 70, and I just chuckled.
And what is it at now, exactly?
67 and a half.
67, so.
Yeah.
I guess my point is, to some extent, where it's at now reflects the fact that we transferred the burden of the
I just
insurance.
want to make sure that we keep an eye on it so it doesn't get so lopsided to one side. That's all it is. It's just keep an eye on it. I suggested today that we've got, because gasoline went crazy, we've got a ton of money in the gasoline budget because we were afraid. Well, today I suggested to Bob that we take 100,000 out of it because gasoline's coming back down again. I think the crisis is over. I think it's grossly overfunded. I noticed in the school side of things today that they level funded the diesel fuel budget from last year. Because again, those prices have gotten more reasonable. So I think that, there was some panic buttons, and rightly so, because I was sweating $6 a gallon diesel fuel. And I was not happy when I was paying that. But it's come down. And I think that we can get a little bit more realistic on the number that we've set aside for that. So, we're looking at, and I will tell you that I know that Bob and Sue are doing all they can do and to get the numbers to where they'll work. And he has not walked into any department and said, you need to cut 10% and walked out the door. And I'm grateful for that because there are some departments, i.e. we just saw 4 of them tonight, that you really couldn't say that to. You can't tell the Council on Aging, cut 10%. You can't tell veterans, cut 10%. And actually, they gave back on the $50,000 of that, but you can't just order it any more than we could order the police department to cut 10%. Where's he gonna get that kind of money? So you have to get more realistic, and we're trying to see where we can shave, what we can do, how we can do it. I still have questions about that $800,000 sitting in the net metering account. I'd love to get a more definitive answer on what that money really is. Is it really in the account, or is it just a fictitious number on a piece of paper? Is it something that we can never use? Can it go to the light bill? You know, it's a lot of money in that account. You know, and it started off at 6-something last year, then 200 and some odd thousand came out of it, and 400 and some odd thousand went into it, and now there's an $865,000 net metering credit in the trial balance for solar. And I'd love to know, what is it, can we use it? If we can't take the cash out, can we put every single light bill in the town against that account and not pay a light bill anymore? What can we do with it? It seems to have activity going on with it, so we must be doing something with it. So, I know it's part of that.
No, yeah, and in addition, we were talking about that community development block grant program income last week, and Jill was part of the.
She sent me an email today.
Yeah, she
and I
kind
had
of,
to
she
forward it
was
to you.
part of the whole granting of monies to people, and she agreed with what I said. That money was supposed to be put back into the general fund, and that was almost $200,000 that's just been rolling in.
So is that going back in the general fund? Is it in the general fund? What
It's
are we
not
doing?
in there right now, but I can close it out as of June 30th to get certified for free cash, or you can vote it for something else. As a matter of fact, you can actually use it for projects at the senior center because it's senior-based. And in Abington, we did have some money left over, and we helped pay for replacing all the outside doors with that money because it's senior-based money.
$200,000. Oh, look at this. We have a birthday party for you.
Is that an ageist comment on your part?
You're older than me.
Not
by much.
Not by much.
All right.
We done?
Anybody else gonna, are we all done beating these two, these two folks up?
Thank you very
That's
much.
it. Thank you
Appreciate it.
very much. All right, the minutes for last week, 2/6/2023. When you've had a moment, I'll take a motion.
Excellent as always, and Ashley included herself this time.
Yes, Ashley did a good job.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes from February 6th, 2023. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Oh yeah, next meeting. I wish Bob hadn't ran out, but anyway, he will not be here next week. Monday's a holiday. Tuesday, they're here with the select board, and he will not be here Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So until I have more information going forward this week, I have no idea.
Just call it when you need it.
Yeah, whether it's gonna be toward the end of next week or it's gonna be the beginning of the following week. But I am in fear, if it is a week from this coming Monday,
What's our deadline?
that's my point. We need to have a joint meeting with the select board, looks like March 7th. Now, they can push it off to the 9th, which is a Thursday, but this budget has to be done for the warrant by the 10th. Because the town meeting is the 11th of April, and the 11th of March is a Saturday. So you need 30 days in advance to have the budget ready.
All right, so just let us know when it's time.
Okay. Any other comments from the committee? Motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Thank you, good night.